We're live, and it's Tuesday again, but not just any Tuesday. It's the Oktoberfest edition of Brewing Controversy. And you know what that means, David?
Do I want to?
Steins are perfectly normal tonight. You are no longer an outlier, which means I had to make a purchase.
Yeah. And I brought my brand new Stein. See, it's got the big D on it.
We know what you're trying to say. You got to have it somewhere. So
it's saying my name is David. What
you wear big shoes.
What? No, like what? What?
So if you're here, say hi. We got some folks out there, and we will try to throw comments up. But we also have an entire rogues gallery of all our favorite usual suspects, because if you've never joined us before, Brewing Controversy is essentially an online streaming version of what David and I have done for the majority of the time we've known each other, which is to gather over craft beer and piss and moan about socio-political topics, inviting whatever friends show up to the table. And tonight, we're going to have a pretty big table, and it's super exciting. We've done a few special things, and we are getting in the festive mood. We've got some appropriate beer. We've got some appropriate snackage. I've had like a super bummer of a week, so this is an early highlight, and I'm really glad to get rolling with all of it. So without further delay, we will not be doing the usual intro because we got a lot of beer to discuss, and then we have only one main topic tonight, which is going to be a lot of fun as well. So let's bring in the population of guest hosts that will fill your screen. First, we're going to start with Brian. Hey, Brian.
Howdy ho.
A Florida man in the flesh.
Oh, God, it's so true. It's so true.
Brian, where are you coming to us from?
Well, currently we are in Newport Richey, Florida, and just about 30 minutes north of Tampa. It's a nice, sticky, humid, awful part of Florida that no one needs to visit.
Nice.
So, like all of Florida, right?
It is really one great big long strip mall. You know, if you notice it, it's like a repeating version of cheesecakes and Wawas and Precision Tunes and the tire store.
And you're constantly walking around, and you've got people asking what the young whippersnapper is doing.
Yeah.
Right.
Florida
hey, Mike is watching. Hey, Mike, how's it going? He thought we were going to complain about the beer. We might, because David has conned me into trying a roasted pumpkin cider or something. So it could happen.
It's gonna be
all right, let's bring in the next one. Oh God. We've got live coming to us from Chattanooga. Mark is here.
How are we doing, guys? Not much.
Back in Nash Vegas, John is with us.
Hello, all.
And let's see, who's next? Olivia in the great state of Vermont. No longer just trolling me in the text. Live in person.
It's okay. Just remember,
I can troll you more loudly now.
Yeah, she's only trolling you. I mean, I just want to point that out because she's right.
And last but not least, ladies and gentlemen, Rob is with us. And remind me, which town is your town in which of the Carolinas? Because I can't keep track of it.
Greenville, South Carolina. For now.
That's right. So there you go. Everybody.
Until they kick you out. What?
And then once you relocate to California, we'll be truly coast to coast if we do this. So that'll be fun. We may have an additional guest with us here shortly, but we'll see how that goes. I'm glad to see everybody. Raise your hand if you're currently or recently in Facebook jail.
Currently.
I like how the smartest members in this one didn't have to raise their hand at all. It's just like,
right.
Well, to be fair,
okay, no, David. There has to be some sort of argument for that. Just because you're not in Facebook jail doesn't mean you're smarter than me.
Morgan wants to know who the guy is with the douche flute.
Some asshole. I don't know.
I don't know if he's referring to the vape or my pipe. I don't know. It could be either.
That's a good point.
It could be either.
It could be either. It probably is the pipe now that I think about it.
I don't know. It sounds like something I would think people would.
I would definitely call a vape a douche flute.
No, a vape is commonly known as a douche flute. That's a real thing.
There we go.
I call it the robot cock that I love to cram in my throat.
Wow. Okay.
It's like an everlasting gobstopper. You can just suck on, suck on, suck on.
It looks like you're not the only one with a vape.
I'm starting to get a little self-conscious now, to be honest with you, but mine reminds me more like the Tin Man, So
Yeah, well,
there you
Wait,
go.
the pen.
Well,
I'm just gonna
we're gonna do a round of food and drink, and as we get to new drink, feel free to chime in with what you're drinking. But let's we've got a variety of snacks, drinks, and substances in front of us tonight. And let's just go around the clock. Let's start at the top of the clock with David. What are you starting off with, David?
I have already kind of laid into my Westbrook Marzen.
Gee whiz, you can say that again. Laid into meaning he's already terminated.
Not my fault you aren't thirsty enough.
Stein.
But it's it's a Marzen. It's got a kind of a. I like this as compared to the Raw and Sons. It doesn't have as many caramel notes. It's got a much brighter, more lagery sort of presence.
so it tastes like a lager.
Yeah, it tastes like it tastes like a lager without the bitey, bitter nastiness of trying to pretend like it's not a Pilsner.
I say like it's a bad thing.
So for those that have not done Oktoberfest, if you don't understand Oktoberfest, Google it. If you don't understand Marzen, Google that. But here's the short version: beer from March, and 6 months later we drink it in October. So it's for me, it's one of the lighter varieties that I like to drink for fun. And I judge a good Marzen on whether or not it's a nice chuggable party beer. So different people have different ratings of how they would examine it. But where would you categorize it, David? Is it a sipping or a party beer? Or lukewarm, ice cold?
I mean, here's the thing: if I'm going to chug a beer, it needs to cost a hell of a lot less than this. Number one. So if you want to line up the Killians of the Rolling Rock, we can just go to town. This, I guess I could chug this. I mean, I wouldn't.
Mike is going to give us the academic explanation of Marzen.
Damn, come on, Mike.
Because
I'm not going to correct him on here because
I'm not spending time on it. But
Mike, please.
If you Google it, you'll get all the finer points. But Mike, if you want to give us the professor's one-liner, we'll throw it up there for people to read while we talk. So, what else do you have more of that, David, or did you pour them all in the Stein?
Did I pour them all in the Stein?
Okay, so you'll be moving on to another one next. That'll work.
Yeah. So again, I'm doing my typical thing, which is whenever I come on the show, I always have 6 different beers. I only really get to talk about one of them. But it also gives me the opportunity to on occasion, go back and talk about one if I really, really like it. And then sometimes it lets me go back and still have one that I'm not going to talk about simply because I don't have enough time.
Right. Fair enough.
But it's really good.
Brian,
I'm embarrassed.
Me?
Yeah, you.
Oh, well, I don't drink nice, expensive, fancy beers like you guys. My taste buds are shit. So I just drink,
That's all right.
Yeah, Blue Moon. But I've got the trifecta going on.
Domestic draft.
Yeah, I like it. I got the trifecta going on. I've got some random hybrid here. I'm not sure what this is. And I've got some Crippy, which is about a 22% indica, which is not bad. So between the 3 of them, we're getting there.
Nice. So Brian's crossfading from Florida. Mark, what are you drinking?
So I have got a Wicked Grove hard cider. Let's see here. It's very berry.
I think I've had that one.
I need to come back over this way. And apparently I thought it was a twist top cap, but I'm going to have to go in here and grab a bottle opener to open this bitch.
Yep. And Mark is a cider guy, not a beer guy. So I encouraged him to cider it up tonight as needed. Do you want me to let you drop out and go find your bottle opener?
Yeah, it's just right back there.
Okay.
You'll be able to see me because it's just right there in the kitchen, which is behind me.
Well, here, we'll do you a favor. We'll take your butt crack off the air. Rob, what are you drinking?
Well, I'm drinking. I'm actually drinking water. water with my TB12 blueberry electrolytes.
That's
And,
right, because you
so I'm
just
having-
started a major diet operation.
Yeah, I've gone to plant-based pretty much. But tonight I do have some brats or beer bratwurst and sauerkraut.
Nice. And you were talking about your process on that earlier.
I have returned.
And almonds.
Nice. Well, you were saying something about steaming all of that in a layer or something.
Well, yeah, I mean, I basically put it in a saucepan, and me and my wife worked on it. But we put the brats in first and let them, cook around for about 5-10 minutes to get them all brown on all sides, and then you take the stovetop to the low side, and then put the sauerkraut over it, and just let it, steam.
Nice.
So
Very cool. We get everybody kind of back in order here. Yeah,
Oh, I didn't mention my food. I had food earlier.
Oh, you have food? Well, tell us.
Well,
about
no,
your
I
food.
ate it. Well, I already ate it. I had kraut and kielbasa as well, but I baked mine instead of putting it in the skillet. That way, it got a nice good char on the sausage and then a little bit of char on the actual kraut too, which actually works better.
Nice. Well, Olivia, it's your turn.
So I've already finished my Leinenkugels. It was okay.
Widely available. If you can't find that, you're not looking.
It was okay. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't great. I just started on the Queen City Oktoberfest. This is a little brewery out of Burlington. Much better. More crisp, less. That was just kind of pilsnery. This one.
Okay.
But this one is better. And
Which one was that? Whose beer?
This is Queen City Brewery out of Burlington, Vermont.
Mm.
And pro tip on your brats, if you do onions, if you brown your brats and then take them out and caramelize onions and then pour beer in the pan and let it completely reduce until it's gone, you get really, really good onions for Sammy's.
Ooh.
All right.
Now we're talking. Well, I'll go last. I had designs that fell apart to go. I went to
Oh, you don't say.
my New Holland Stein down the street, and I was going to get a crowler of their Marzen, their what do they call it? Big Lars, and they are sold out. So instead, I picked up a bunch of Bells from Comstock, Michigan, their Marzen, their Oktoberfest, and put 3 of them in this Stein. So that's how I've had to compromise. And also, I think I didn't make it all the way up in the corner for John.
You didn't.
Yeah, what's John drinking?
I was about to point out the fact that, as usual, you're wrong. You were not
What you
last.
drinking?
I'm last. So I am drinking a lovely mixture of half Kraken rum and half water because I'm keto and I can't be drinking beer. There are a few
That's right.
beers that are available for me, but most of them suck complete and total ass. I'm also enjoying some beer brats and kraut, which I make in an iron skillet.
Sweet.
Add beer into it as well and let that simmer down and steam them, and then finish with the kraut on top of it to steam a little further.
John's also brought the nicest webcam to the
Yeah, right.
tonight. He's got like
He's got a little remote. He's
he's
got
got
all
TV
that.
controls.
Wah.
Yeah.
You son of a bitch.
So,
Before we move on, I thought I'd share as I open up my second one. I'm not going to talk about it right now, but it's just a really cool.
It's so cool you can't see it.
It's
the
lovely.
John Cena.
Yeah, it's a lovely
Ah,
bright
it's
light
so-
in our face.
It's so bright. Wait, hold on. There we go. Kind of shade it.
Oh, a pretty beer.
It is pretty. It's 3 Floyds, which is, I really, their zombie dust is very spot on. They're a great brewery down here. They do a ton of business with my work, and I was kind of excited to see that they had an Oktoberfest, which is it's got a very nice color there.
Pretty.
And it's got a very pretty bottle, which I'm not going to throw
Well,
away.
so that's another Marzen from your pack O Marzens.
Yes.
So Mike has given us
Get on my level.
the quick academic, and here you go: fine lager, complex balance of malts, classic hops, celebration beer, and translates to the month of March beer or something. So I like just saying March beer. Go look it up. Mike is an excellent academic when it comes to alcoholic substances. And one of these days, I'm going to trick him into coming on here and talking for like an extended period of time about either beer or booze or something, because the man can host a tasting. I can guarantee that. So thank you for that definition. Let me check to make sure I'm not missing a message. Nope, we're still just the 7. So real quick, an outside pitch, not something I'm drinking. I can't get it. Nashville guys can get it. But I wanted to, the closest applicable shirt that I had for tonight's festivities was my Turner House Brewing t-shirt. And this is actually a microbrewery that a friend of mine, Steve Turner, runs. And I met Steve through Nashville political circles, and he started a brewery, a microbrewery focusing on creating fun, welcoming environment for craft beer enthusiasts. And the neat thing is that they brew premium high gravity beers with our ancestors in mind. All of our beers are named after women in our family. We know we wouldn't be where we are today without them, which is why we say they poured into us, and now we pour pints for them. So
Nice.
I told him today, I'm going to talk about your beer because of the theme of the episode. And they actually did, and they call it an Oktoberfest internally, but it's called the Queen's Legacy. And it's available at both of the locations. There's in Chicago, a Lulu, but in Nashville at Tennessee Brew Works. So pop over to Tennessee Brew Works and see if you can get some Turner House. And my biggest cool thing that I like about it is this is a Black-owned business. And when they come to Nashville to do tastings, they do it in the community. And it's really cool to cross that presumptive divide and see how many folks, regardless of color, creed, et cetera, are into beer, into good craft beer. And their tasting event that I went to in Nashville was just phenomenal. So it's really fun to know that they're just a couple hours away from me here, but available in both of those cities. So I told him I would mention that since I was going to wear this shirt, since it was the only German spelled thing I had in beer shirts. So it seemed like it'd be a fun way to go. But thank you for sharing all of your things. I threw together a bullshit snack tray that's appropriate and not worth talking about, but it's going to taste good.
Charcuterie board.
It's an adult lunchable.
See, it doesn't deserve that much fanciness. It's
John,
a snack tray.
fix your lamp.
I just had a Hue bulb fail.
What is that thing, John?
A Philips Hue bulb just failed. Will
I
you
was
take me out for
wondering
a
if
second? And
that
I'm going to turn it
was-
off. It's not responding to controller either. just pull me out for a second.
That's amazing. We did not install the switch so the Cheech could throw raves.
You have to put a stroke warning.
Way to
boy.
make us look super old, Lucas. Thank you.
You know what, though? I think most people here get that reference.
Yeah, I know. They probably do.
Most people here across at least 2, if not 3 generations get that reference.
Sean Connery is just like multi-generational anyway. So
I-
Everybody's singing
Sean
for John
Connery is
now. The
timeless.
system is down. The system is down. Okay.
It's crazy. You can just turn something off and on again and it starts working. It's like I do that professionally.
yeah, how long till it starts blinking again?
Well, you know what, John? You gave us a great way to segue into the topic tonight.
Ooh, what's that? Sorry.
Speaking of turning it off and back on again, Facebook's having a real bad week.
Yeah, they are.
And that's what we're celebrating tonight. To continue
that
my
graphic.
hypocritical fascination with this network that I'm both addicted to and resent, we're going to have a wide round table of kick the shit out of Zuck and Facebook. So, yeah. And also, I'm glad to know that out in the audience, people are also getting the joke on Strong Bad. So thank you, Mike and Jeanette. So, yeah, so Facebook's week has really started off shitty, and we're only 2 days in. Lots of bad news dropped over the weekend. 60 Minutes, which is, not your average dismissible program, has, busted that open with a whistleblower. And she ain't got a lot of nice shit to say. If you watch the hearing today,
Oh my God.
It was ugly, and we'll get into that. I've brought some goodies along because, as most people know, I can't not make visual fun of other people's pain when I have such a long-standing gripe with them. But the one thing that stood out for me, the hilarity, there was an outage yesterday, as everybody, it was big news. I was actually taking screenshots of different things through the day because I wasn't sure if it would be a big enough deal. But during the daytime for work, I'm in a platform called HubSpot, which some people are already familiar with. And HubSpot thought this was a big enough problem to put a bright red banner atop their interface saying, there's a massive outage. All your shit that's connected to Facebook is not going to work right now. Sorry. And so at that point, I was like, okay, it's a real thing if they've pushed out messaging to millions of users of a social media marketing platform. So it made headlines, and it was a very big deal that everybody noticed. But the best part was Twitter.
Oh God, Twitter was great.
Twitter was the troll factory for this phenomenon, partly because Facebook had to use their Twitter account to keep people apprised of what was going on. And my favorite troll, my favorite thing that I saw on Twitter yesterday was this video.
Oh my God, that was hilarious.
The person that posted that was like,
Lucas, I
this is
think
what it's like when Twitter is where you have to post when all your shit goes down.
Thank you for sharing your inner soccer mom. We appreciate it.
I know. I was thinking minions are such like boomer humor.
That was great.
So
Your new car isn't a minivan, Lucas?
No, it wouldn't fit up the driveway.
So my
Mark,
favorite
you're about
one
to say.
that
So
I
that's
saw
what we're calling
yesterday.
it these days, huh?
Mark, you were about to say?
My favorite one that I saw yesterday is there's this comedian that I follow named Steve Hofstetter, and he said, "I wonder if Zuckerberg has tried rubbing some ivermectin on it to see if it fixes it."
I love it. Oh, that's great. Anybody else see any expert trolling?
So I didn't actually see any really good trolling specifically. The time that I spent yesterday was in people within the IT and network industry having conversations on what they thought was going on specifically. And the best example that I saw was that it was a failure on their architect and engineers' ability to properly configure their BGP routes, specifically advertising them and filtering it. And they sent junk data to all the content delivery networks, which then blacklisted them, effectively removing Facebook and everything that they own from the internet.
So Facebook got removed for violating Facebook's terms and conditions. Is that what you're saying?
Or violating the internet's terms and conditions at a routing level.
Nice.
Sweet karma.
Morgan points out, is it ridiculous to suspect a link? You know, it's an interesting timing issue. I thought about that. I thought, somebody, it might have been one of you guys. Was it you, Rob? Somebody suggested me that maybe Zuck ripped all the cords out of the wall.
Well, no, I thought it was an anonymous attack.
Ah, okay.
Nah, I mean, none of this. I mean, here's the thing: could there be a connection? Yeah, like John said, that's a pretty big failure on the part of their IT team to do something that stupid, where you get literally on that level get blocked off the internet.
Well, somebody's getting fired.
That's incredibly stupid. So maybe there is a question of maybe were they trying to reconfigure something in hopes of heading off some other investigation of their practices? Maybe. I would like to say that that's too conspiratorial, because that would normally sound like something someone crazy would say. On the other hand, we are definitely not talking about the sharpest knives in the drawer, man.
Well, I'd like to counter that. I don't think they would gain anything from taking themselves publicly offline. The work they could do to clear anything that may be criminal would be on the back end, which they could easily do without taking their services offline and having any kind of distraction. Most likely, the most logical explanation, that's the simplest explanation, was that we had a kind of a software and networking as a service situation going on, and someone just completely and totally fucked up the code, which then turned into this issue with the BGP routing failure with their filters.
I read that they really done goofed, and everything is under that server domain, like the keycard access for the buildings and the software to work on it, and everything was completely offline. So they couldn't even get in the fucking doors because it's offline.
No, Mike, the outage was worldwide. Like 300 million users had no Facebook, Instagram, or WhatsApp yesterday.
It was a good day for MeWe.
So I'm reading I've got an article here from the New York Times that says that according to one of the people from Facebook, the initial problem occurred in a network Facebook calls its backbone, which connects its data centers around the world. This certain vice president, Santosh Janardhan, said that during the maintenance of the network, a command was issued to assess how much capacity was available, but the command backfired, disconnecting the network and blocking Facebook's data centers from communicating.
That would be a very loose description. And keep in mind, you have to remember how they report this stuff. It's going to be all about SOX compliance because they're a publicly traded company. So they're going to be very, very careful on what they say and anything that gets out there.
Well, their stock's already declining. Like it's been dropping over the past week.
But you can get in a lot of trouble for certain things because anytime you make a change in a publicly traded company, it must be auditable. It must be tested beforehand and executed accordingly without any error. Trust me, every change I make for the company I work for has to go through a change management system for SOX compliance. Because they're a publicly traded company. So
you run it on the test server in the background, and then like once it works, you're like, okay, we can take it to the public server.
Yeah, but mistakes happen, and the way they described that would fit that network services as a service kind of situation. You know, software defined networking. It matches up with the theory that I've been reading everywhere. A lot of articles have said that it was just a simple DNS mistake, which does not make sense at all. That's very off the course.
That's because a lot of people who don't know what they're talking about every time they tried to log into Facebook saw a DNS error.
Yeah. But we had major media outlets saying it's a DNS mistake on their part. But you can update DNS quickly, especially when you're Facebook.
Yeah,
right. That didn't sound like it was very accurate to me.
No, I do like, however, that the explanation that they gave, just like in a layman's terms, makes me automatically think of "Halt and Catch Fire."
Yeah.
Well,
someone actually gave the command.
The outage followed heaps of bad news, and the conversation today didn't get any better. And it inspired me to go on a meme making spree.
Oh my God.
And I can't promise that I'm not going to put these on the internet and then promote them. But they came out of the weekend already with, the news that they were trying to lure children into Instagram in creepy ways, and B, that they were purposefully making us hate each other and putting the most fighty things at the tops of all of their lists.
Well, that's what the whistleblower said.
Yeah. And that kind of sent me down this kind of rabbit hole. So I got creative. I came up with this winner.
Oh, God.
Hey, where'd you take a picture of my vehicle?
I like that.
And then there was this. And riffing on the same theme.
Oh, okay.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Oh.
So I
like
can't
dark.
promise.
I like dark.
I can't promise I'm not going to do lots of untoward things.
I think that
hey, you have to scroll to see people. Look, I got somebody down in the bottom I didn't see. Here he is.
What?
It's Johnny. Here's Johnny.
Welcome, Johnny.
Here's
Hey, Lucas. Quick question before we continue.
Yeah.
A little off topic, going back to what we're drinking. I'm officially terrified. So I ran out of the beverages that I made, or was getting close to. And for example, it's a rather skinny glass that I'm drinking out of. Doesn't hold a lot. I asked my roommate to make me another one, specifically in these glasses, because I have 6 of them. He brought me a tumbler that is very dark, full of liquor. I'm going to die on the air.
That's
Yes.
the exact reason I'm not allowed to make drinks in my household.
That looks like rum and coke.
No, that is
That's-
rum and a little bit of water.
Yeah,
Heavy duty stuff.
that's what back in the day me and my friends used to call a concoction. It's no
Well,
longer a
let's,
cocktail. It's now
Let's
a
welcome
concoction.
John Pica. How are you, man?
He's
Hey
muted.
there, friends and
Oh, there it
foes.
is.
How you doing? Good to be
So,
with you.
Usually, we get our once in a blue moon, more conservative commentary from your neck of the woods, but I especially love that you can be involved in our discussion because this is one of those places, as we saw today in the hearings, a lot of us are agreeing on the fact that Facebook has done screwed many pooches. And
Yes.
I think everybody always feels that they're doing a terrible job of moderating and using their AI. And I know that you, in your various broadcasts and such, you've had some recent issues. Earlier, I asked for a show of hands on who's been in Facebook jail, and you had some issues recently. Are you still barred from advertising or something?
Yes. So this is the craziest thing, right? So I posted 2 years ago on a page on my magic page, the Bamboozlist, a meme, a cartoon, illustrated picture of a guy with a bagel and his finger in the hole and cutting the bagel, and it said, "Remember, when you're slicing a bagel, put your finger in the hole to stabilize it." And it popped up on memories, and Facebook or someone flagged it as a violation of their policy on self-harm and violence. And they put me in jail for going live and advertising for 60 days.
Wow.
Now, what is so frustrating about that is I've spent thousands of dollars in advertising revenue on Facebook over the last several years. Thousands of dollars. And, for them to just and to give me no way to dispute it, to find resolution it's unacceptable. And I do disagree with their assessment every single time I watch a live video, because it pops up. You can't go live for the next, now it's 26 days. And I click disagree with this decision. And that's become my hobby for the last 45 days or however long it's been.
I have a question for you, John. I'm curious. So I would imagine all the various things you're involved with, you probably have multiple pages that represent content or businesses, things like that,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Out of curiosity, have you created secondary accounts that you never use for anything, but set them as basically controlling interest of all those pages in case your primary gets blown away, so you don't lose all those?
That is the face of a man who will neither confirm or deny that rumor.
Okay. That's
might
all
not
I
be
needed
the
to
only
know.
one.
I wanted to.
So
As someone who's had to do the exact same thing, and by the way, as of last year, maybe a year and a half ago, Facebook now will associate IP addresses to multiple accounts that have signed in, so a band can take out multiple accounts at the same time. And they also use some device ID stuff from browsers and mobile devices as well to do that. So make sure you use like an incognito mode and maybe a VPN when you create those, and never let them touch, if you know what I mean, to make sure you don't lose something you could have been building for 10, 20 years, whatever. Just personal advice to anybody watching or currently in the chat, if you are an asshole on the internet.
Just to be clear,
Hey.
we are not endorsing. Brewing Controversy does not endorse any subversion of Facebook rules. We are not John is just simply putting forth a hypothetical, which may or may not occur.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm definitely. I'm. It's a hypothetical. It's a security conversation. A behavior on the internet for people that are dickheads. Stuff like that. Something I'd be a pro at.
So I will tell you this. So
Yes.
that whole thing of them IDing devices and using IP addresses, that seems very troublesome to me, because you have still, and I know in this circle we don't really appreciate this to the degree, maybe David will, to the degree that it is a thing, but still 65% of Americans do not have access to the internet in their home. They are using the internet at school and at libraries.
Correct.
And so, they're going to be using the same computers, the same IP addresses. And we know that they're accessing Instagram and Facebook from those devices.
Well, I've got a counter to that can kind of help you appreciate what's going on there. So they use some, we're going to call it AI, in the way that we do in current computer, processing, to detect when this particular computer is actually used for hundreds or maybe thousands of users to log in. They know, okay, obviously these counts aren't associated. This is a library computer. This is an IP address at a big business that has tens of thousands of devices behind it. They know to not do it there. But for example, let's say you or I, hypothetically, have a single account on our cell phone, and we only ever log in with that one. Suddenly we create a second account. We bounce between them for, a few months. And then one day, I don't know, we do something silly like make a statement against, in this example, Christians, unintentionally, not realizing that it's going to get you banned for 30 days. They say, okay, well, there's only 2 accounts that have ever signed in from this, and that account hasn't been on anything else. We're going to hit them both and whack them. That's how they do that kind of association. And it's not surprising for Facebook, considering, their thing is about tracking users to make money from an advertising perspective. I'm sure you've seen it, John, when you've made an ad on Facebook to advertise something. One of the options at the bottom is the Facebook marketing pixel, I believe it's called.
Yeah.
That you can associate with websites to kind of carry on that marketing data and track users and your campaign.
Hold that thought for a second, because I believe that your better half is trying to tell you something. Don't drink that. It's Tuesday. Also, I want to say shout out to Joe. Joe's here, and he's had some similar issues with Facebook that we're discussing tonight.
I have a question.
The whole family.
Especially like for John Pica and stuff. So here's my question for you. Is your entire business model based around Facebook, or do you have alternative methods of revenue? Because one of the things that tweaked me about this whole thing was AOC came out and said that there are thousands of people who were losing income because Facebook was down and because Instagram was down. To which my response to that is, if your entire business model depends on someone else's website, your business model is flawed.
Well,
Okay, so the short answer to that is no. I do use Facebook to generate business and to generate revenue, but it's a sliver. It's maybe 1/16. And I started my entertainment businesses, my live entertainment, my podcasting, all of my endeavors long before social media was even a thing. I was creating promotions for shows back in the old AIM days and the old .alt
Oh my God.
forum days and Yahoo group
Really?
days. I mean, I'm an old dude, and so and before that, it was all paper handbills, posters, and face-to-face guerrilla marketing.
Right.
And so Facebook and Instagram going down didn't really affect me at all. It frustrated me because there was a promotion that we're going to run for our podcast that I wanted to post and get going, and it had to wait a day. That was frustrating, but it didn't cost me money. And I'm on Clubhouse. If any of you guys participate in Clubhouse social audio, it's awesome. But yesterday, you would have thought that it was the apocalypse. People were losing their blessed minds over this Facebook outage, and I'm just like, guys, if you can't do business without Facebook, we got to have a conversation. There's something seriously wrong about that.
So, if I could,
Yeah, you look like you took exception to part of that, David.
So here's the thing. I think we need to acknowledge how big Facebook has gotten. I think we need to
Correct.
acknowledge how large this is. So, to say Facebook is down for 3 hours is rather like saying, hey, we lost power for 3 hours. They aren't that dissimilar. I think one of the things that frustrates me about how Facebook is being treated, how Google is being treated, how a lot of these groups are being treated, is that we need to acknowledge that these do need to come under the heading of common carriers. And these are, in essence, private utilities that are used by the public in the same way that UPS and FedEx are subject to special rules, even though we have a post office that can deliver packages. FedEx and UPS have to abide by special rules because they are essentially acting as a private version of a public utility. They simply say like, oh, well, we can do something better or for a different price or differently than the public utilities, so you can pay for us to do this.
Well, as long as DeJoy is running the post office, that's a statement of fact, though.
By the way, slide aside, Lucas. I opened up the Blake's roasted pumpkin cider. It's apple cider that smells like ass. That's basically what it is.
Jesus Christ,
Lucas,
man, I've got this far to go before I can get to it.
Well,
I know,
Lucas will stuff his
way too
face
much
in that.
sugar at the head of this. But back to my point real fast is that we need to acknowledge that it makes perfect sense in the same way that, hey, my business relies on the presence of electricity to my building. I don't think it's unfair for a business to say, well, we generally assume Facebook is going to be a thing. If Facebook is going to go away, I mean, MySpace. I mean, for those of us who were around during the MySpace days,
Dude, I logged into my MySpace yesterday.
It's bad what they've done to that website.
It's still
I was one of the first 300 people on MySpace.
Wow.
but I mean, MySpace gave ample warning signs of, hey, we're winding this down.
We're imploding.
And so I think it's very fair for people to be like, hey, Facebook hasn't told me it's imploding. It's perfectly reasonable, just like I rely on water for my bathroom or electricity for my lights.
What you thinking, Olivia?
I was thinking on David's note, it makes sense for Facebook to take up a large share of a lot of companies' marketing, and we shouldn't really bash on that because it's a common platform. Everybody uses it. It's something everybody does.
Well,
it's less common than radio. It's less common than print. This is where people put their money for advertising. So if it goes down for 5 hours, that's a lot of lost revenue.
Well, I counter with this. If you can't survive as a business for 5 hours without marketing, you don't have a business to begin with. Even starting
because Facebook is down for 5 hours. But
yeah.
Well,
I mean,
it's a big disruption.
Well, listen, and everybody in the marketing space, like real deal marketers, know the truth about Facebook, and that is that the signal to noise ratio is so bad that spending money on that as your primary outlet is a fool's errand. It is like a hamster chasing itself on a wheel. If you're not, like I said, it's 1/16 of my marketing endeavors. Everything else is very diversified. So real businesses know this, and they are not putting all of their eggs in that one basket. Because
I work
look,
in B2B, and I'm so glad to be able to prioritize LinkedIn in my attention span when it comes to the company's marketing.
I'm just saying, 1/16 of like a $15 million advertising budget is still a lot of
That's
money.
also true. That is also very true.
But you've got to admit, though, again, if your entire business model revolves around one website that you have zero control over, you've got a bad business model.
So, I'll tell you this from my perspective. First of all, Facebook is not one website.
No, it's
As
not.
someone who's been in charge of trying to block Facebook from schools before, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, dude. Like trying to shut that thing down is like trying to like scrub herpes from a like turn of the century prostitute. It's not happening.
David.
Okay,
David,
at the end of the day,
went
it's
about it
one
the wrong way.
website. It has one domain name. They may have different servers in different places that it's hard to block.
Dude,
But at the end of the day, if my business model requires me to advertise on a site that David has 100% control over, and David at any point in time can go, fuck you,
Yeah.
You know, I think that's
my business model is stupid.
Well,
I think that's something you said, though. I don't think Facebook does have 100% control over it.
The common carrier thing makes sense, and I think everything that everybody said starts to dance into that territory of the big R, regulation. And today's testimony started to really inspire all of the usual suspects in all these unusual ways, because you had some really interesting agreements in Congress today.
And you had some stupid shit today.
So
There was a lot of stupid shit, but the last thing that I brought into my creative bubble today, a lot of you have already seen, this is what I took away from where we're going with these hearings.
You know, it's funny, Lucas, because you put that on the screen, and when you brought up the term "big R," I was thinking of something different coming from you.
That's
So
exactly what I expected.
let's pretend that Johnny was working with one of the biggest music superstars today to straighten out her health insurance and has no idea what happened today in Congress.
Mm-hmm. So Francis, I think it's Hogan, not Hogan. I heard the Congress people say it both ways.
They've been pronouncing it Hogan, but it's spelled Haugen.
Yeah, and I heard a couple of them say Hogan. I don't know, but this woman is a 37-year-old former Facebook product manager who worked on civic integrity issues for the company. And the beautiful part of this is, and I was explaining this to David earlier, like we had some text going. I was like, Zuck is so fucked. He's so fucked. And
For the first time.
Is, yeah. Maybe he should lie down. It hurts.
This is what happens when you're an incel and you start a website.
She is.
I would usually call a low blow.
All of the bases.
Hasn't he spawned, though?
I'm going to do what I do best and piss off everybody at once. She is everything that is the worst for Facebook. She's just attractive enough, but not unbelievably pretty. She's white, so they can't blow her off as a minority that they don't have to listen to, or a weirdo Indian data scientist, or whatever the fuck they want to do. She's really well-spoken in a plain way. She's not like a nerdy type or an android type, which is the people they typically get at these hearings. And she inputs back and forth. She's an easy darling of all the political stripes. And the fact that she had a conversation across a room with Marsha Blackburn successfully to the right results blows my mind.
I've got a wonderful comment.
Now,
for that
Blackburn said plenty of dumb shit. I'll cue that up for you, Mark, because I just fell out when she was talking about the child study or the child focus groups, and she was asking about, did the parents have permission? Did they sign like a permission slip?
That's
thank you for proving your knowledge of government and business extends as far as soccer moms.
I love y'all's fucking representatives. They're so.
That's not my favorite thing. My favorite thing she said. My favorite thing she said is that this woman who took a $10,500 donation from Facebook with a straight face said, "You've got to follow the money." What the hell?
So this is a part of where, you know, I disagree with a lot of my conservative brothers and sisters who they're calling for regulation of the internet, and I know that a lot of people on the left are calling for regulation of the internet, but for different reasons. But the outcome is still the same. The reasons conservative Republicans want to regulate it is to control content, and what they deem immoral or unacceptable. But strangely, the people on the left,
they can. But the right wants to be able to spout their Nazisms. So
there's some
on
shades
the
of
left,
gray there, and as someone who's on the left, we want to jump to the right and say that it's Nazism and this or that, but there's a lot of different shades of the shit that they want to say.
Right.
Well, the left wants to control it to control their narrative and to control what kind of information they deem is acceptable and moral. Both sides want to do the same thing.
This is how this is going to end. Okay, we are going to blindly, as a country, fall ass backwards eventually into the equivalent of the internet you have in China, if we're not careful.
It's already happening, John.
And I'm going to get stuck, as in the industry, building the fucking Great Firewall of the United States, and I'm going to be pissed the whole way. But I'm going to collect that check because
that's the quote from the night: "The Great Firewall of the United States." That's
instead of the Great Firewall of China. I mean, that'll be the equivalent. But I'm going to fall ass backwards into it while I'm doing it.
If I could speak to that real fast, I just want to say, John is definitely right. I understand what Pica is saying. I get where he's coming from. I think that the challenge that we run into in this situation is that we're trying to combat an issue in which none of us can agree what the truth is, right? And I think that's part of my problem with some of the, and Pica, this is part of my problem with some of the groups on the right, is I ask, show me the evidence, show me the truth, show me where you can prove what you're saying, and they can't do it. And then, and if someone on the left has the same issue, we got to treat it the same. Hey, if you can't show me evidence, if you can't show me something that I can verify, then we got to treat it the same. I think that the problem that we're running into is that we're retreating into that firewall, right? Because none of us can agree what is real. And so the only way is to either let anarchy reign, which we've now seen doesn't help any of us, or let nothing reign. Glass the planet, right? Clear it all out. And I think that the challenge that we have is that it takes a lot of work to say, no, we can do this. We just have to verify. And I think, Lucas, this is something you and I have talked about, which is the real issue is that we need to have a human element put into this equation to say, this is real, this is not real, instead of an algorithm trying to interpret human thought and language into a way.
But how do you ensure that human is calling it right down the middle?
Exactly.
It's still more manageable.
You have a human that verifies for that human. You have a regular review process that is looked over by human beings. This is why we have courts, right? What is a court other than that exact process?
David is speaking to the fact that I always get pissed off that they are automating so much instead of using people that can apply context. The one that AI can't do is apply context.
I think y'all missed something that's very big here. Quantity. The amount of posts and information that's being created at any given time, and the ability for a human in a small vocal group to hide and make subgroups on Facebook or whatever the platform is to keep this information away from this group of people that's supposed to be reviewing the data. Even if we had a giant global team that was divided evenly between left, right, Republican, Democrat, what have you, trying to go through this content and give it a fair review, it would be impossible. The only way this is going to win is going to be AI. And I don't mean the current AI that we have, but AI evolved. I'm talking the point of singularity, when AI gains a true consciousness and we can program it to review it as a person.
Or
Yeah.
Right.
Or-
Let us
Olivia,
not
Olivia,
bring
let
on
Olivia
the
jump in on
singularity.
this
Can we not do that? That would be awesome.
or how about
But you don't want
how
to hit
about this?
singularity?
No, I
So-
do not want to hit the singularity. The singularity is bad.
It
It's
will
very
happen.
bad.
It will happen, and it may be the end of us. But you know,
Just because we've never seen one single AI futuristic movie ever work out where we all live and survive it, I don't think that's any reason to assume that that's the only possible outcome.
well, I'll
It's
counter.
likely
I'll counter
outcome.
that. I'll counter that.
All right, Olivia keeps getting put up. We need to show
Go
some
for it. Go for it. I'm
Jump
sorry.
in, Olivia.
So I think the happy place is somewhere between regulation and liability, because I'm not comfortable with regulating the internet and ending up with Chinese internet, but
Right.
I feel like these companies should, to some extent, be held liable for things that affect real world events, like
January
situations
6th.
where we had that group that tried to
Yeah.
kidnap Governor Whitmer that organized on Facebook, stuff like that Facebook doesn't take active agency to control.
The Christchurch massacre.
Yeah,
Yep.
that stuff, like if they were held liable for these things, their enforcement would be better. But because they're not liable, they only kind of give a shit.
January 6th.
Yep.
And I think what Olivia is saying, yeah, I'm speaking from a point of law. I think that maybe that's going to encourage it. And John, to talk about where you're coming from about there's no way to monitor this because the sheer number of posts. I think if the liability increases on Facebook, then they're going to choke down on the pipeline. They're going to limit the pipeline because the only way that they can function at a certain point is to control how much is being put up on there at any given point, so that they can monitor and self-regulate. Because the problem is, if they don't self-regulate, they're going to be regulated from the outside.
So here's the
I
answer.
still think you fail to see that even when they apply certain things like that, like let's say you go the direction of Instagram, which it's kind of hard to post a link on Instagram the way that they format that system.
It's
A
extremely
click-
hard to post a link on
Yeah.
Instagram.
You sure as hell won't have a clickable one unless you put it in your description on your page. But
Yeah, pretty much.
so groups will continue to disseminate this information in ways. They'll do things and break the links to where someone has to remove spaces. They'll hide things in images. They will get this content out there. It will happen. Yes, that'll reduce it. I'll give you that. You will reduce that flow of that information, good or bad. But they just do not have the manpower
Well,
to
dude, it's
review
just like
every post by every
They
person.
don't need it. They don't need it. We're treating social media and Facebook like it's the end all be all of organization and social organization and whatnot. Guys, social media is new. It is not old. Facebook's only been around since 2008, 2009. What did people do to organize groups and organize movements before this?
What
They
did
did
people
it
do to write
face-
Phone
books
trees.
before the printing press?
They did it face to face, person to person.
Phone
In-
trees.
In
There's group
homes,
text now. There's WhatsApp groups. There's so many ways to do it.
But I think what Pika is saying is
Yeah, but
even
WhatsApp is under
before
Facebook.
WhatsApp is a social media thing. Group text you can still kind of consider social media. Before we had cell phones, how did people organize? Is I think where he's getting at.
What did
And
people do before we built the printing press? They wrote down books. Then someone built a printing press, and God knows that put out a lot of books really fast. But if we go back to writing books down again, it'll be okay.
the
So,
American
real
Revolution.
quick, Mike chimed in with a really good question, and I can't say that I've been to China, but I may be the only person here that's had Chinese exchange students in my class to explain it to me firsthand from their experience. But has anybody actually seen it?
Can I interject here on Mike's point?
Yeah.
I have not personally traveled to China, but I have coordinated a team and designed, deployed, and had to manage networks within China. So from an internet perspective, I'm very familiar. I'm talking everything as far as having to hand VPN public keys to the government to do business.
Yeah.
Or private
And
keys, excuse me.
The
Sorry.
kids always told me that it was very one lane, very oppressive. you get to do one thing with one tool that's approved by on high, and you don't really have a lot of choices.
Yeah.
And a lot of it was them just reveling in the freedom of the American internet. Like while they were in America, they were hog wild for all the options, and I learned a lot. I didn't know what Baidu was until I had these Chinese exchange students in my arts class.
That means they were looking at Pornhub, right?
Probably.
For the first time. Yeah.
I was just glad. I used to play music in the background during the class, and I was glad that I played S&M by Metallica, the Symphony Metallica album. And this one kid in the front row was like working on it was web design class. He's like working away, and all of a sudden I see him like, and he recognized what it was, and I just loved it. I flipped out. Mike does point out a lot of them have, ways around it. That's true. That does kind of lend itself to the people will find a way. One thing that I really liked that I heard in the hearing, she's just such a perfect middle of the road person for this. Like this, she is the foil. I told, I think David, did I tell you that when I said, I hope she's got bodyguards?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I want to believe that they won't do anything to her, but on the other hand, in my experience, these are not the smartest people. I mean, when I've worked with these folks, when I've worked with the national reps for Google and Facebook and even Apple, I'm going to be honest. Half the time I was looking at them being like, you sound very smart for like 5 seconds. You are also very pretty, which distracts me long enough for me not to realize, oh my God, you're an idiot. You're definitely not the sharpest knife in the drawer when it comes down to doing some of these things. Because I'd be looking at these people being like, okay, so how do we protect, from my perspective, how do we protect SIPA? Right?
So are you saying that Facebook's too dumb to hire a hitman? Because I'm not sure that's the case.
No, that's the thing, is they're stupid enough to do it is the problem.
Yeah, I think she needs to watch herself.
Idiots hire hitmen. Smart people hire lawyers.
Rob?
Well, no, I was just going to point out that she's in a very similar situation to Jeffrey Wiggin, who was the tobacco whistleblower.
Yeah. Well, and so one of the things that she said that played right through the middle that I really loved was the discussion about regulation and 230. And she made it I had never heard anybody explain how this could be done, but also not done. And I really liked what she had to say. She said, I'm not for regulating the free internet, but I do believe that we could potentially regulate via 230 in a way that regulates the application of algorithms. Like, that really blew me up.
Hey, Lucas, check the private chat.
Yeah, I'm getting there.
Okay. Hey, also, guys, I got to run right quick. I'm going to be gone for the night.
Okay.
Enjoyed it.
Nice meeting you, Brian.
Good to see all you guys. Take care.
Man.
Have a good
night.
Aloha.
Peace.
The man from Florida said aloha.
Aloha.
Oh
I was about to point that out. What the hell?
Well, Brian spent some time.
He lived a lot of time in Hawaii.
Yeah, he spent a lot of time in Hawaii. He had arguably a dream job.
Yeah,
for him.
I think maybe removing the safe harbor provision is at the end of the day, or modifying the safe harbor provision is at the end of the day sort of what we need to do, which is, I think, what we need. And we can do it just like we do with a lot of things, like with the Family Medical Leave Act, right? With the Family Medical Leave Act, we don't apply the Family Medical Leave Act to companies that employ less than 50 people. Why? Because we don't expect small businesses to be able to sustain the regulations under the Family Medical Leave Act. I feel like we can do the same thing with Section 230 of saying, hey, if you earn more than $2 million of your revenue online, then 230 no longer applies to you. You are responsible for the content that goes up on your website, even if it's user generated. It's your responsibility to know who your users are.
Whether it's 230 or something else, I don't see it being very far-fetched that the government can put its foot down in whatever aspect we want to, we want to put it under 230, we want to do some other FCC shit. I don't give a shit.
Well,
But
we wouldn't do it under
it should
230. We
be-
would repeal 230 and instead apply a new statute that says, hey, if you're a small time outfit, 230 doesn't apply to you simply because you can't afford to pay that many people to monitor your site. But if you're making as much money as Google is, then yes,
it doesn't matter what the numbers are. It doesn't matter what the code statute is. What matters is what she essentially made very clear, which was no factor should govern what's popular on social media except natural interaction, period. That there should never be an algorithm interfering to enhance, elevate, manipulate, etc., and that we can govern that. And I think that's where we need to be focused.
Because she was talking about the fact that the algorithm right now is designed to basically make the stuff that's going to like if it's going to outrage liberals or if it's going to outrage conservatives, it goes to the top of the food chain. And that way it gets more interactions and more hits and more views and more,
David, can I ask?
If it bleeds, it leads.
Right.
David, I'm curious.
Except the human got to make that decision when it came to the evening news. And now we don't have a human making that decision. We have a Terminator.
David, based on your statement that you made a second ago about that, using income to determine yes or no whether that law applied, would you, I'm curious on your opinion here, just your opinion.
Yeah.
Would you apply that same logic to hosting providers? And this is where I'm going with this. I'm going freedom of speech.
No, I don't think we could. I don't think we could apply that to hosting.
Good. Because
let me ask
because if I'm, let's say I'm a far right or a far left person, and I'm going to make something that's inflammatory, but it's a small website. It's just me. I'm not on a social media page pushing that to the masses. It's just me doing what I do. I feel like I should still have the right to say whatever the hell I want on a personal blog.
Well, first of all, you still have the right. But the hosting provider can look at you and tell you to fuck right off. You do realize that,
right?
But I'm saying, let's say that hosting provider allows me. I'm still operating within their terms of service, but it's inflammatory to the masses.
ePic is still a thing, right?
Yeah.
ePic is still a thing. It's still the preferred provider of every Nazi in the room.
Listen up, Lucas.
If you love shining that jackboot just right, then you go to ePic, and you know what? I have no problem with that. Now, when ePic gets hacked because they draw the aggro.
Sucks to suck, motherfuckers.
I know, right?
So, and it goes back for all the people that want to come and bring up free speech. Yes, free speech is a thing, but it doesn't free you from consequences of what you say.
Well, exactly.
Hold on.
Wait.
We're not talking about consequences of what you're saying, because we're talking about government interaction here from laws here at this point.
And I want to be clear, just to be clear, the government could still do that. It's not a matter of prior restraint under the law. Under constitutional law, it's still not a matter of prior restraint. But I mean, I would not have a problem saying that if you're a hosting provider, you do not have liability, and unless you somehow facilitate beyond simply providing the URL.
So, let's say you're a big content delivery network for, I don't know, some hypothetical website like Facebook,
right?
Pushing the content.
Akamai gets it straight up the ass. Gets it straight up the ass.
Well, but
that's what you're talking about. And Akamai has earned every last
that's beside the point, David. I think what he's talking about and what makes the most sense to me as a angry liberal, you can't hold the people that own the land that the radio tower happens to stand on responsible for the horse shit that falls out of the radio host's mouth.
Yeah, I have a big picture that I'm trying to draw here, where it's the government. They're gonna fuck this law up.
Listen, the only thing the government does right, the only thing the government does well, is break things and kill people.
Ding, 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 ding. We have a winner.
Because we spend the majority of our money on killing people.
Yeah, I think the interstate highway system would beg to differ.
Have
that's-
you
that's
driven
old
in
government.
Arkansas?
Wait,
That's the
wait.
old
The
government. We're
United
giving credit
States
to the
highway
new.
system. Have you looked at Tennessee's highways, which are
Hold on.
currently under construction every day of the week for every
David,
year?
I think
South
Hey,
Carolina.
listen, it sucks to be Hamilton County. Davidson County, on the other hand,
David, you're walking into a trap there because it depends on how you define it. Does the interstate highway system work great? Yeah. Does it also create a death machine? Yes. So
Is it also 100% constantly under repair because it's not 100% functional?
right.
Yes.
Should we talk about that bridge that's somewhere out near Memphis that
It doesn't-
So wait, since we're talking about content regulation and everything, it's kind of sort of related minorly. Who all is laughing their ass off at Trump at getting a lawyer to ask Twitter to get him back on Twitter?
I didn't know that happened.
Dude, yeah. Oh, you hadn't seen that?
No,
How did
I
you
was too
miss
busy
that?
paying
Yeah.
attention to Facebook.
dude,
He's got a lawyer filing a lawsuit so that he can get back on Twitter.
And aren't people
What
piling onto that, like
grounds?
other companies and people that have been fucked in the same way?
I
They're
hadn't
trying
heard
to
about
join.
that. I
here's-
just know it's
here-
Trump, and I'm laughing my ass off at it because
Let's let Johnny in here. He's been waiting patiently for very long.
So here's my problem with everything that everyone has said is who is the arbiter of what is inflammatory and who gets to make the decision that it's against community standards or whatever you want to call it.
John,
Because-
I
because
completely
your
agree with you,
standards-
John. I
Your
completely agree with you.
standards, yeah, and because David, your standards are completely different from mine.
I got this one.
And well, no. Because if we're gonna do that, then I want my guys to be the arbiter of truth.
Okay, so that's not.
And what
exactly-
happens when my guys are back in office?
So here's what I'm trying to tell you. That's not exactly true. So what you're missing is actually there's a legal process for this that we have in the court system. It's called the reasonable man. And
common decency.
Well, no. So the reasonable man is
really
a
have
Okay, wait. If we're gonna follow that line, I know where you're going, David. And
Yeah.
if we're gonna follow that line of logic, where do our laws come from?
They come from the well. Where do you mean? Like,
Why do we have laws?
We have laws because they provide order and regulation to our society.
Why is that important?
Okay, so we're trying to go all the way down to legal theory. All
No,
right,
no.
No,
Dabble in it. Go ahead and dabble in it,
wait,
David. Dabble
No,
in it.
here's where I'm going, David. Why is it not okay for me to come over to your house right now, break down the door, and shoot you in the head?
Because that would be an aspect of anarchy. If you could do it to me, then you could do it to anyone.
And why is that wrong?
All right, so we are going to legal theory, right?
No.
We are doing
going.
legal theory, dude. This is legal theory. So
No, I think he's trying to go back to the Old Testament.
Well, listen.
This
is true.
This is what we do
This
in
is
law.
true.
This is a
All
legal theory of
law,
why people
all
do what they do.
law comes from theology. Every single law we have. Listen,
Can I get a
it all-
thumbs down for everyone on the screen?
Guys,
Thumbs down, thumbs down.
One of us
Going to agree.
there's only one person in this
But it
entire
was
room
so
who
much
went
more
to law school.
harmonious.
All law
Okay,
does not come from
wait.
law school. I've
Hang
had
on,
to
wait a
take
minute.
legal theory.
Who's
No.
the one person who has a degree in theology in
Who's
this
the one
room?
person with a degree in law?
Can
Okay.
I get in the middle
We're
of this? Just
talking
a quick
about law.
question
I'm
to
not
both of you?
talking about theology.
To both
I'm
of
not. I don't piss in your yard. Don't piss in mine.
But John,
Well, no,
John,
but you
John,
do,
can I ask you
David.
something?
That's the problem.
I'm not. No, you think
Not
everything
today.
is theology.
Not today.
Hang on,
Not
wait,
today. But
hang
you
on,
do.
John,
let's-
question for you, John.
Okay.
Okay. I don't have a degree in theology. I don't. But
I
the
went to
little bits that
seminary.
I pick up and going to a private Christian school for too many fucking years of my life and coming from a Catholic background, I am an atheist though, just to be completely forward. Would you not agree that an aspect of religion in general is its own form of government for society in a way?
No.
No?
No.
Okay, well then I have a question. Would you not agree that most people who are involved in any kind of organized religion cherry pick the documents which their religion is based on.
Yes.
I can't speak for everybody.
Okay,
I don't know
so
everybody.
let me narrow this down for you then.
Mark,
Hang on, let me narrow this down for you then.
Let me
Because-
clarify that.
You just
Let me-
click- hang
let-
on.
Hold on.
Hang
So
on, let me get to the second part of my question.
And then you don't want to do it.
Lucas gets to moderate going here forward. Okay.
Let Johnny clarify his response.
because that is a broad brush statement, and I haven't talked to every Christian out in the world, and neither have you. You have not attended every church. You have not sat under the leadership of every pastor. You don't know. You're going to make broad generalizations about what the church in America is, but the fact of the matter is nobody on this panel has any clue what everybody in the church thinks or doesn't think,
David?
including you, David.
David,
Hang on.
let me
Hang
be
on.
the
So,
one
you're right.
pain in the ass to point out that this is why I always go back to secular or get the fuck out every single
Hang on,
time.
wait. Hang on. Let me respond to Pete. Hang on, wait.
Right, Mark?
Okay, so here's the thing. You're right. I haven't been to every church, and I haven't been to talk to every single Christian, but I have seen what the majority is doing. Okay,
The groupthink of Christianity in the U.S.
So let's look at it this way. You've got these group of people who are like, well, you have to follow the 10 commandments, but we're going to forget everything else in the Old Testament because that doesn't matter because Christ came along and started the new covenant. Well, when Christ started the new covenant, he threw the 10 commandments out the fucking window.
No, actually,
A new commandment I give unto you. Love one another as I have loved you. That's it. That's the end of the story. That's all there is. There is no
Southern liberals
there is
argue
nothing
about
else
stuff.
but that. That's
It's
the new
always
covenant.
interestingly biblical. David,
Okay, can I launch back? Can I launch this back into the secular side? So I want to keep us on the secular side. I just want to say this to you, John. So we don't make laws because everyone who didn't wear a seatbelt flew through the window and died.
Yeah, where's the seatbelt law in the Bible, John?
Okay,
Exactly.
We don't make laws.
Okay,
We don't make
Mark,
laws
to be
because
fair, let's not
every
take
piece of
digs.
meat- We don't make laws because every piece of meat that's dipped in cyanide kills everyone. We don't make laws about any of those things because that always happens. We make laws because that most of the time happens. So, that being said, no, none of us have ever belonged to, none of us can know the mind of every pastor. We don't need to. That's not how we make rules for society. That's not how we make rules for large, complex groups. If you want to make a rule for your village, go right ahead. It makes
I love
sense.
that Mike
If you
comes
wanna make
from
a rule-
outside the screen and just throws a grenade into the.
Hang on, wait, I have another question too.
If you want to make a rule for a large, complex group, we have to look at large, complex trends, and that's how this works. So again, coming back to the point of, I don't even know. Let's get all the way away from theology, all the way from this, because you're trying to go into legal theory, and legal theory is not what we're trying to talk about. What we're trying to talk about here is, in law, there is justification for regulating these industries, and there's actually justification all the way back to the founding of the republic for how we would regulate these industries. In fact, I can almost guarantee you, Sam Adams, founding father, son of liberty, would have his son of liberty fist up that ass. I mean, like, if you look at his legislative record, it's intense.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what I'm saying is that we have a way of judging what is and what is not fair, and we have this thing called the reasonable man. We have the common law, which is a 1,000-year-old tradition of law that is secular. That we have secular. I will fully confess, it did not begin purely secular, but it was thoroughly secularized as being separate from canon law under the common law. The canon law belongs to the church courts. The common law belongs to the civil courts. We have this nice reasonable man statute that we can use to judge the reasonableness of, hey, I need to pull that, or hey, I don't. In the same way that we can say, hey, it was really stupid of you to put a giant punji pit next to a child's playground versus oh, you built a punching pit in the middle of your 100-acre property that was entirely fenced off, and then a kid randomly wandered into your property and then fell on a bunch of shit-covered steaks.
I'm going to pause you two for a
So
second
many
so
questions to
Olivia
be
can
asked there,
jump in
but-
here.
So when you're talking about Facebook specifically and content moderation, one of the biggest problems they have on the platform is disinformation. And a lot of these things are either factual or not. When you start talking about like flat earth, we know this is factually inaccurate. There's no debate there. And this is the kind of content that I don't think requires any sort of fucking justification to take care of. We know it's not true. Everybody knows it's not true except for like 300 fucking people.
Well, and that one guy in Arizona that keeps
Olivia.
trying to launch himself into space so he can
That's
see it.
what kind of
Olivia, I have
that's
a
what
question.
kind of lit me up a second ago, which was, you know, there should be an easy low-hanging fruit opportunity for easily provable or disprovable realities.
Yeah, there's contextual situations, but I'm sure it requires some more nuance and some more depth. But when you're talking about straight misinformation, things that are not accurate.
So here's my solution.
But broadly, in this conversation that we're having, Olivia, how did you grab that train that had gone so far off the tracks and yank it back on and make us cruise forward at incredible speeds that I could only associate to the trains in Japan? I commend you. That was amazing. Thank you.
The ones that we won't have because of all the
It comes
lobbyists.
from my job.
Well, so here's my solution. On social media, just make discussions about religion, politics, and social justice. Just ban it altogether.
I think I might be
That
okay
is,
with it.
that you just gave us the Chinese Great Firewall.
Yep.
Well, okay, wait. So wait, but okay.
Puppy dogs and unicorns.
Well, pause.
That's all we should have.
David. No. If the company Facebook banned all that, but it wasn't applied at a regulation level, you did not give us the Great Firewall
You're right.
of China.
You are correct. You are correct.
But now, if we mandated that as a
let me
government,
compare
Yeah.
to Nextdoor, the next most comparable busybody network. I am on a 2-week timeout from Nextdoor, and the reasons provided to me, because I went rounds yesterday, email back and forth with a support representative because I complained that they at least Facebook has the decency to show you what the fuck you did.
Sometimes.
Nextdoor just says timeout.
Sometimes.
Like
I
just want to interject.
Hold on, David. We're getting to beer. I'm sitting here staring at your fucking cider and not drinking it. You can wait too. So
if you don't drink it, you have to boof it. That's the rule, Lucas.
in Facebook construct, you get shown the post when they tell you you're in Facebook jail.
Sometimes. I got a flag last week on a comment that violated community standards, but it wouldn't. When I clicked the link to see it, there was nothing. It would not.
It's not
I
fail-safe,
avoid
but-
all of this. No one ever. I have never been in Facebook jail. I've gotten a warning once, and I yelled at them significantly for it. They
I
wouldn't
used
take
to
it
be
back
able to
about
get
my
away with
Nazi
that.
cartoon.
That used to work. I think Johnny probably had similar success. Back when I was advertising
Yeah.
for Mac Authority, I used to be able to rebuke anything they ever said to me and tell them, because it was my advertising account that the company pumped money into, I would tell them, we have spent tens of thousands of dollars, you will back off, and they would undo the complaint. Now
That
I
happened
don't
to
have
me
that.
all the time. And yes, because I was a person spending money, I had
Yeah.
access and money talked.
So-
This is the exception this time.
So
They've gotten
Nextdoor-
so big, your big money is nothing.
Nextdoor has an incredibly low bar for butthurt.
Oh God!
The way that I got a 2-week timeout on Nextdoor, they cited that I used all caps too frequently. But would you like to know what I've been discussing frequently on Nextdoor? GRPD, which is an all caps 4-letter phrase. You cannot abbreviate the police agency without capital GRPD.
I gotta say, I really like that they did that to you. I think
We
that is some
refer to
some
our-
corporate grade fucking trolling to fuck you over that way.
We also refer to our city as GR. So in the discussions of the topics I'm interested in, I'm saying GRPD repeatedly with capitals because I, like grammar and shit.
Right.
No more. No more. I'm going to spell out Grand Rapids Police Department in lowercase and then put a parenthetical definition as to why every fucking time from now on.
I
I
love
have
that.
used 2 words in emphasis in all capitals in 2 different posts.
I'm going to write
And-
their policy team and make sure that if you use an excess amount of parentheses, it fucks you over.
So
I
they
might apply to
said-
their company to do
They
that,
said
actually.
that using caps is the same as berating other users. And I pointed out to them, your platform doesn't offer bold or italics. And I know you were born yesterday because you're 20 and you're working moderation. But
21,
back in the
21.
day, we had to use caps to accentuate words on message boards that didn't have other features. So there's that. And then they cited me for using the word Karens. They said that Karens is an insulting phrase.
Of course they
It's
would.
not allowed.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Okay, so Karen is synonymous with racist white woman. So if I say the words racist white woman, will you suddenly be okay with it? Because that sounds more controversial.
There's a group that says that using the phrase Karen is misogynistic.
There's also a group that says using the word
if
Karen
she
is
says
racist.
that's stupid. It's
Yeah,
a-
I am quite.
Yeah, if Olivia says that's
Right
stupid,
off
then
the
yeah.
bat.
But I didn't say it. I just know that there are people who
So
say it.
what I'm getting
I know,
at is if
I've only been
Nextdoor can
jailed.
exist this way, then Facebook or others could adopt those kinds of, because they do say, no politics, no name calling. They have a pretty tight ship, and for the most part, it works, but it doesn't totally work as I've just explained. So they're still relying on AI. They're still letting people complain about stuff, and a computer reads it and says, "Oh, there's too many capitals," and then kicks out a ban. There still should be.
Lucas, do you see David bouncing
creating.
up and down? He's going to pee his pants. You need to let him go.
Oh, I missed another one. Oh yeah, sorry, David needs a break.
Well, hey, Lucas, not to derail the entire conversation, but I've got something important to share with you.
Did you bring a magic act?
No, but can we just talk for a minute
Can you make
About-
Lucas fucking disappear?
about the face sculpt on this Vision action
Oh my
figure?
god! Did you just open a new toy, or you're not going to open it?
I'm
Hold
getting
on,
a
let
lot
me
of
No,
continue
I am going to open it.
There we go.
Oh, you can't see it.
No,
Oh,
no,
that
you're
is
good.
no,
You're
that,
good.
that is nice.
That's
that.
nice.
Oh wow,
I mean, what an incredible sculpt on that.
we've come a long way, man.
That's almost as
Yeah.
nice as the face sculpt on my Revelation Skeletor.
Yeah.
Revelation's
good.
the
I'm
new
just-
one, right?
Yeah.
The one
Yeah.
that
Well,
everybody was so
no,
pissed
it's the
off
second
about?
new one because they just came out with another one. Like they just came out with a whole new He-Man Master.
Oh, I know, but like the Revelations one was the one that everybody was pissed off.
the
that it
Kevin
was
Smith one, yeah.
really about
Yeah.
Tila.
Yep.
You should see
Which
the
was
wide-
brilliant.
Yeah.
I thought it was
wide array of
great.
Miniatures in our house. 'Cause
Oh,
there
I
are
bet.
many, and some of them are very well printed.
Hey, Lucas,
So
can I,
yeah.
can I get some credit? Speaking of Kevin Smith.
good point.
Boom.
So let's real quick make a beer transition. Who has jumped into a new beverage? Who's on their next one?
Me.
I only had
what
the
you
one.
got? Hold on, wait a minute.
I've only got the one, and I'm still drinking on it.
Let's get you large scale here. What we got?
I have the Wormtown Brewery Oktoberfest out of Worcester, Mass. It is
Nice.
not as good as the Burlington one, but better than Leinenkugel. It's drinkable.
Okay. Is
Lagers
it
just aren't my favorite, so
gulpable?
it's gulpable.
And David, you had another one rolling, right?
Yes, the Duck Rabbit Marzen. I actually like this Marzen. It might be because I've been drinking for a little bit, but I'm liking this Marzen. You can tell it has a slightly darker color.
Oh yeah.
It has a lot more caramel flavors to it, which I'm really enjoying. This tastes more ale-ish, which therefore makes me like it better because
Okay.
lager is shit. But yeah, no, I mean this. I'm liking this. I mean, Duck Rabbit is normally a pretty solid brewery. There's nothing that they make that I hate. There's not a lot that they make that I like, but I mean, I gotta say, this Marzen as far as what I've had this evening, including that roasted pumpkin cider, which I still need to get the smell out of my nose.
Yeah. Well,
It smells rank.
Was it weird?
speaking of,
Rank.
Can I get a moment, Lucas, when you're done?
I finally opened this up. So let's see how rough this is.
It sounds good.
I can hear it sliding
It's
down your throat
fine,
hole.
but the smell is rank.
The face of puzzle.
The smell does, yeah. The nose doesn't do anything for it.
It
And
is.
this is from up my way. This is Blake's hard cider, and this is Armada, Michigan. I've had several Blakes on this show. Ew.
Does it have like the
nose
essence
doesn't
of
do
Fermunda?
anything for you.
But it just tastes like a light cider.
No, it doesn't. It tastes like a cider that you're drinking out of a used jack-o'-lantern that's been charred.
Kind of, a little bit. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know.
I
So
don't love it.
So what I'm enjoying right now is, as we've been talking, I've had roommates delivering me various mixtures of water, and I've been blending that beverage that I was brought earlier, and I've got it to the point that it tastes like what you would imagine this animated rabbit's asshole would be like. I'm probably at a 65% water, 35% Kraken, and I've brought out the pungent, astringent chemical notes of the ethanol that's in here. It's kind of got some caramelized heads going with it. The nose it's definitely like, you went and had a large Coke at a McDonald's and you drank all of it and you left it in the cup for a weekend and you came out Monday and you grabbed the wrong beverage and you went to take a sip of it. That's definitely where I'm at. So cheers, everybody on the call. I hope you're enjoying your experience as much as I am.
Wow.
Damn. Well,
Yay, being fucking keto.
That kind of makes me wish that I actually drank alcohol so I could join you guys. But I've
are
got
you eating cereal?
Funko's.
Oh my god!
Cuphead.
They make cereal now?
They did. They don't
Oh.
anymore. This is
No.
3 years old. Should
Oh.
I eat it on the air?
Yo,
I mean,
okay, I'll make you a deal. If you eat that
mean-
on air, I will get a box of cereal that I've had since I was 16 years old out of my office and eat it with you.
I think this sounds like, Johnny, you should have him on your show, Back of the Cereal Box,
Done.
just to do this challenge of old cereal.
If it
Done.
you feel better from a
Told me.
microbiological standpoint, it
Tell
is
me.
probably safe because the moisture is too low to grow pathogens. So it's
Well-
gonna taste awful, but it won't kill you.
I love
It'll
that
be
you're
styrofoam,
trying
you
to
know it
inject
will.
reason into this conversation
For the
without
science.
realizing that reason has nothing to do with this conversation anymore.
Well, I'm guessing that the ingredient labeled thiamine mononitrate is probably something.
Oh, that's just a vitamin. You're okay.
Okay, if we John, if we do this,
We
think
lost John.
oh
Oh,
shit.
Johnny died off. Where'd he go?
He said he needed to head out. Lots of fun.
Oh, okay.
But if he tunes back in, it won't kill him if it's
Drop
2 years old.
your challenge anyway.
I think
taste back.
that John and we need to do a campaign to get. I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with a YouTuber named Nile Red. He does crazy chemistry experiments. I think we should bring him in for what all these various additives and stabilizers that they put in these cereals may or may not have done over, a 20-year course of sitting on a shelf, including being stored in a hot attic, and see what I'm going to put in my body. And, we can discuss how I may die. It'll be great.
Wow.
It's okay.
Can I run the betting
Hey,
pool
listen,
on how long it's going to take you to
make it
die?
better.
Like, who has $20 on 10 minutes?
I would like to point out that Mike has accurately called the.
Yeah, in Tennessee humidity, all bets are off. Hey, listen, John, if it makes you feel any better, what the crap that's in your fucking vapor is
Vape?
probably
It's probably worse.
Yeah, I tried
Hey,
the same
you know,
result.
I'll break that down for you. So
I mean,
we're listening.
my shit is pretty bad too. I won't lie, but
So there's
It
some
also
some
depends
interest.
wildly on the permeability of the film. There's like an air and moisture barrier to films.
So there's some interesting current research that's been going on that shows that the propylene glycol and vegetable glycerin that they put in vape is, babe, it's funny you think you got the money to put that in there, but don't worry, I've been buying more life insurance for you on me because I know. But so the propylene glycol and vegetable glycerin generally is fine for you as long as you're not vaping it at too high of a temperature, which can cause some horrible chemicals to form. But interestingly enough, the nicotine itself causes the same cellular disruption and damage over time that tobacco does, leading to the failure of the cells in your lungs and the air sacs to be able to transmit oxygen into the bloodstream. What is that called when that happens, David?
popcorn lung.
Asphyxiation?
Effectively asphyxiation. What is the name?
Emphysema.
Emphysema. There you go. And that is not a bunch of U.S. research that is always tilted. That is some world research that's been verified. Now, it's not, if we were to scale it, it's not as bad as tobacco, but it will still happen over time. So a vape is marginally healthier than tobacco, but it is not healthy.
I just like my
Don't
tobacco
quit,
better. I
at some
think it tastes better. Also, those things keep on giving me pneumonia.
I mean, I can always respect a nice pipe or even the vape over the weird ass filtered chemical blah 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 fucking cigarettes. I mean, I've always felt that a cigar and a pipe were vastly more honest ways to consume tobacco. So
Well, my problem with cigars are some of the ones that I've had, they remind me of cat piss when you burn them. In smell, not in taste.
Yeah,
not that
you're
I've
not
tasted
wrong.
too much cat piss, but I mean a little bit here and there.
You need to try Drew Estates. Those are very not the ones you get in the gas station, the ones you get from a proper humidor. Just to clarify.
Yeah.
So anybody that just stumbles in here in our sunset,
Yeah, we've completely like
we
the
are
topic
talking
is
about
here,
Facebook,
and we did this, and then now it's
So, well, the
It's over
natural
here.
place for this conversation.
I mean, I can
you know,
remind you where you were. We were on regulation and liability.
Yeah, we've wiggled around the moralities, the truths and the lies, and all that good stuff. And we talked about the regulation aspect. But for me, I just can't wait to see what's happening tomorrow. I mean, it seems like this is just a progressively worse situation. And if you can get all of the clowns that we saw today to join in the same clown nose honking chorus, you got trouble on your hands. And when you can get liberals to be in lockstep with Marsha Blackburn, you're fucked.
I just want to point out this next,
especially when you have to question how in the world Marsha Blackburn got to be the ranking member of this judiciary committee.
Yeah. Well, maybe anyway.
Occupying
I just want to point out
space.
this next Oktoberfest. It has
Oh,
a little.
you're already
ornament.
moving. Hold on, you're already moving on to your next one. That's no surprise, you lush.
It has a little ornament. It came with a little ornament.
What
Is it going to taste like it came out of that rabbit's ass?
I don't know. So
What is that beer?
I already drank. The
Is it a
box
rabbit?
version from these guys. These are genuine fucking Germans. Eininger. This is the private brewery. Brewery. I can't speak German. I don't know.
So don't try to.
Yeah. Don't you dash my dreams. Don't you tell me what to do.
Hey, John.
Yeah, but this is the Oktoberfest Marzen, spelled with like funny uses of K's and little grammatical marks. Hey, I'm waiting for John's reaction.
John's reaction is
John's
irrelevant.
reaction is
Professor
I've
Mike
had
has
Albert
helped,
Kraken.
Ooh,
Professor Mike has helped John explain the phenomenon concerning the lungs.
So here was
Yes,
something.
no, completely. Mike is correct. So when nicotine is exposed to that, there is a chemical that, when cells in the lung is exposed to nicotine, there is a certain chemical that is released within that cell that disrupts it over time and causes damage. And yes, it produces the disorder known as emphysema. Yeah, he's got it on point.
So let's talk about the future, because I can see some fantastic things to come that are going to just, I mean, more and more of what I came off with earlier, railing the Zuck.
You're enjoying that picture way too much.
I
sir.
am.
Well,
Olivia,
I
what you
mean,
got?
that is the first time the Zuck has had a true nut. I mean, I just want to put that out there.
He's got 2 kids. Apparently.
Oh,
Yeah, but that wasn't a true nut.
Yeah.
He came hard for his first
All right,
time.
Olivia, what you
I
got?
have something I want to say, but Olivia was before me, so go ahead.
So I read a pretty long article earlier about Facebook's intention to target teenagers with Instagram and potentially Facebook. And the article summed it up as the beginning last gasps of a dying industry, because they've lost what their target market is, because their target market always has been the young, like, tastemakers and trendsetters crowd. And those people have now migrated to other apps, and now they have to sort of try to recapture those people. So I think we're going to see a long, slow death of the Facebook.
Well, and nobody, like, I mean, young people tend to say, like teenagers are that they don't do
is for
Facebook.
old people.
Yeah, Facebook.
Yeah, they're TikTok. They're on TikTok.
Facebook's where
Discord.
my mom is.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, dude, I'm on Discord, but yeah. So
more universal than others, but now I do have grave concerns for the condition of human communication if we're going to start pumping people through, you know, TikTok and shit. Like I've already got problems with the 8-second attention span as is.
I think
I'm
if Facebook
really not okay with indoctrinating people with all this short form horse shit, but
I think if Facebook were to crash and burn, something else similar would take its place anyway.
Well, I mean, my hope would be that what we would see, and this may be where we're heading.
Mike points out accurately, Facebook died when Grandma joined. Yep.
Yeah.
Thumbs up, Mike.
But I mean, I think where we're heading is towards one of the issues that happens is when you actually have a market that should be more diverse, and you don't have that diversity. That's normally something's going wrong, right? When Standard Oil was doing it, it was because Standard Oil was leveraging its monopoly to control railroad rates and keep other oil producers out of the market. When AT&T was doing it, it was that they were leveraging their control and keeping other telecommunications providers out of the market. So I think what Facebook is running up into is that Sherman antitrust line of they are in essence keeping other providers out of the market. And I think that we're going to end up with I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. I mean, like, honestly, in my own way, I kind of like, as much as I hate to say it, because I may be a leftist, but I don't like the solution because it's inelegant to the problem, which is I'd kind of like to see them nationalized.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things.
I know John starts twitching.
I don't love it either. I mean, I would rather break
like
them up first and see what happens. They spoke to that today in Congress. They're like, you know, you have somebody that's just trying to do everything and do it badly. That was essentially, I forgot who said it and how they worded it, but essentially that was the takeaway. They've decided to buy up all these different kinds of businesses and do everything, but do it all badly.
That sounds like AOC's line, because she's been talking about that on her Instagram and her Twitter for the past couple of days about how Facebook came along and bought Instagram because they saw them as a threat, and they bought WhatsApp because they saw them as a threat.
I think they should be forced to compete with these elements. I mean, first of all, WhatsApp is fucking, I don't understand. Why would you buy that when you already have Facebook Messenger?
Because WhatsApp has a different encryption.
It has a different encryption.
WhatsApp,
and
Facebook wanted the keys, and they got them. That's why everybody who's actually using that as a secure communication platform has fucking left it.
Yeah.
But I
So-
do understand what David's saying, because you've got something that's grown so big, and part of the draw of Facebook is that so many people are on it, and when you get a bunch of platforms that are competing, you have less sort of consolidation of the population onto this platform, so it's harder to connect.
But balkanization.
But at the same time, if the government did bust up Facebook, like let's say they did that, let's say they pulled in AT&T, they would just do what AT&T did, and over a 10 to 15 year course, remerge back together, because our government is shitty at keeping that apart.
But the problem
That's
is
true.
that when AT&T remerged back together, they were no longer a monopoly, right? Sprint may not be a thing, but T-Mobile, Verizon, even Xfinity. I get my cell phone
You're
service,
skipping a stage, David.
But David, you're missing a key point there.
which is
There's only 3 networks in the United States.
yeah.
As far as
Well-
cellular, I'm cellular. There's only
Yeah, but
3
you're both
real
jumping
networks.
over the part of the CLEC. You've both skipped the CLEC. The room that was made by the government's intervention in AT&T was opened. The CLEC happened.
Yes.
And Google it, but I forgot what
I'm very familiar with it.
it's. I forgot what it stands for. Anyway, small phone company. That's the quick way of saying it. So you could buy, for instance, business phone service from half a dozen vendors easily, and they could all compete for your business. At the end of the day, they were all leasing space on fucking AT&T lines.
Competitive local exchange carrier.
That's it. And so the window was opened long enough to create competition, which then, of course, ended up being mobile carrier competition. And even if there are just 3, at least there are 3.
Yeah,
Well,
because-
my point with the 3 is that, David started to mention things like Xfinity / Comcast, and you get Google Voice and all of those. They are not true carriers. They are MVNOs, mobile virtual network operators.
Yep.
They are one of the 3 or a mixture, rebadged, resold, deprioritized.
Yeah. Mark,
Yep.
you had your fingers up in thought.
So yeah, because I'm kind of going back to. I'm reading over some excerpts from Hogan's testimony today, and this was something I didn't know. That I think that if what she's saying should happen was cool. So basically, one of the things that Twitter has that Facebook doesn't have is what they call small frictions. And basically, it says on Twitter you have to click on a link before you can actually share it. Small actions like that friction don't require picking good ideas and bad ones. They just make the platform less twitchy and less reactive.
Right.
Facebook's internal research says that each one of these small actions dramatically reduces misinformation, hate speech, and violence inciting content on the platforms.
It's another thing that she did and said today that just solidifies how much of a nightmare she is for these assholes.
I also want to
Because
point out,
she puts things in a term that you can, like, twitchy
That we can understand.
works.
yeah,
It's not like when Zuck shows up and does his Lieutenant Commander Data fucking routine and sits there and speaks. in-
First of all, don't
Fucking
insult
Vulcan.
Data. Data is
don't-
emotionally deep. Data
Look
is
who
deep.
showed-
but
look who
there-
showed up.
but
It's
he
Alicia.
looked
Right?
like
Alicia Perfect
Data.
showed up. You
Hey, Alicia.
missed all the fun.
Yeah, you missed a bunch. You're going to have to rewind later.
Yeah, seriously. But if I may offer one thing and about all this, which is one of the things that is kind of pissing me off about this entire thing, is all this goes back to about 4 or 5 years ago. A bunch of researchers came up with these exact answers, right? They said, hey, Facebook is causing violent interactions. They're pushing this. Hey,
Right.
Facebook is causing body dysmorphia. And Facebook came back and said, no, we aren't doing that. And they said, well, our data says differently. And they said, well, here's what we'll do. You all stop pushing this. We aren't going to fight you, but you all stop pushing this. We're going to set up an in-house research division with a couple of guys who you all trust, and we're going to get this done. We're going to do the research. And then they did the research, and then when everyone kept on asking them, hey, remember that question I asked you like 4 years ago about causing extremism or body dysmorphia or any of those other interesting things? Remember those? Yes, we remember them. Can I have the no?
Well,
No, they
jumping off of
released that because
jumping
they were
off of that,
talking about
David,
that. They were talking about that in the trial today. That Facebook's own research shows that what was it? 67% of teenagers have experienced some form of body dysmorphia because of stuff they've seen on Instagram, and out of that 67%, 56% of those have reverted to some kind of eating disorder, self-harm, suicide, so on and so forth.
4 years ago.
And that's Facebook's research. That they turned over today.
David. A bit of more information I want to give on that. Now, it's been a while since I read this report. I'm talking like 5 or 6 years, maybe 7 at this point. But if I recall, when they were doing some of that research, the way they actually went about it was manipulating in mass using large test groups based on sign-up dates, your profile ID, which is sequential. The content that the users were exposed to and collecting data off of it. And the only reason why I bring this up is I want to emphasize the cruelty that goes into that, to do that to society, manipulating the mindset of people to collect said data.
Well, they pointed out that all along, anything that ever gets caught is like a crapshoot. There's a lot that doesn't get caught. And a lot of the talking points they talked about today was in any category, like what you just described, or ads that are not allowed. There's a shitload of people playing the odds. I used to play the odds all the time. I don't know how many here have ever advertised on Facebook. They used to have this horse shit with a percentage of text. And image.
I was just thinking about that. That thing fucking sucks as an event promoter.
All right.
I hate that shit.
For those that don't know, here and watching at home, you used to have to plan. What was it, 20%, John?
Roughly 20 to 25, and it would be based upon the font and the layout. You could manipulate it by moving it.
Yeah, they gave you like a grid overlay, so you could go to Photoshop and make sure that text didn't occupy more than a certain number of the squares. It was the most arbitrary garbage. I would use it all the time. This was when I would combat them.
My web flyer designs would be based off of that.
Yeah. When I was at Mac Authority, I would constantly come back at them and tell them, you can piss off because this is a duplicate of an Apple ad and they have the best advertising in the industry. Do you want to be like Apple or do you want to sit on this shit? And they would always let me through. They dropped that eventually, but I used to play the odds. I would make what I wanted, place the bet, and most of the time they would never hang it up. And they use that for the age of the people that are on the network. They use that for the content. They use that for every single thing. Every time they've ever said they controlled anything, the testimony today indicates and backs up there's a lot that gets through. And that's a huge problem. And I think that applies to all of these issues, even what you guys were just talking about.
Did you ever find that when you were advertising through them, the way it was 5, 6, 7, even 8 years ago, has been so fucking watered down now, and it just doesn't even make sense to really do.
You have to have special access. You actually have to send your ID and do a whole bunch of shit to be able to do ads on political, social, real estate. There's a whole category of financial. I think the financial and real estate, David, tell me if I'm wrong, those make sense because there are certain regulatory concerns.
Yeah, because with political and real estate, there's tax implications.
But political should only be applied to political organizations, in my opinion. So like for us,
but again, with
Brewing controversy to advertise that it exists, we have to go through the verification process for social political advertising. I do not think that that's in line with a free market or free speech.
No, because but I kind of get the rule, because the thing is, if we were a PAC, a political action committee,
but we're not.
We're not, but we kind of
we're just a bunch of people talking about politics and social.
It's one of those things, though. Can we prove it? It's one of those things like, can you prove you're not a Lilliputian? Sure. I only see you through the television screen. You could be very small with very small things around you.
They're painting it with a big brush for the best possible outcome for society. They
But
put
then
that
it's
rule
not.
but they put that rule in place because of all that far right bullshit. Now that John's gone,
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. I mean, I like, dude.
No, it's not just that though. I mean,
but that was a big contributing factor. It's not just that, but that was a huge contributing factor.
this
That
really
rule
existed
got
before.
no. That rule got put in place during Trump. I can pull articles.
Yep, it did. All right.
I'm trying to think of the timing. I've had to have that authorization for candidate clients for many years, but
It may be different if it was a candidate client that had been recognized as a political person. But for
true.
the general public to do anything
Yes,
political, to have
you're
to
right,
verify, was put
Yeah.
in place during Trump's time in office because of all the far right bullshit.
I
right.
just want to point
Olivia?
out.
Wait, David, no duck rabbits. Olivia's talking.
So somebody mentioned extremism on Facebook and all of that. And they changed the algorithm in, I want to say 2018. And I think that's probably the worst thing they've done for it. Because the new algorithm, if you look at anything for some period of time or interact with it, even read the comments, even though you didn't like it or comment on it, you get associated content. And that, when you're talking about people that are vulnerable to extremism, if they interact with some post, they start seeing a bunch of similar posts.
Right.
And that's where you get into sort of the rabbit hole mentality. Because I'm in groups that, like, I'm in a group called Ben Shapiro Destroyed the Sandcastle I Just Built, which just shits on Ben Shapiro. It's hysterical. But because I'm in that group,
Send us invites. Ben Shapiro now lives in my fucking city, unfortunately.
but because I'm in that group, I get a bunch of suggested videos for Ben Shapiro and that other asshole with the beard whose name I can't remember. And that algorithm, I think, is a huge problem because it sort of pushes people in a direction they may not have otherwise gone on their own.
Right. Well, this stuff today, the way that she framed everything, it really gives, I mean, there's no controversy to what she said. She brilliantly framed things in a way that nobody on the left can write it off to the right. Nobody on the right can write it off to the left. Everyone feels that their content has been mistreated. Everyone feels that they've been falsely filtered. Everybody tends to have a dog in this hunt on the same side. And, you know, I don't know where it goes from here on the first layer, but I love the fact that you kept getting a theme of, but the kids. And one of my favorite things about that is the abject hypocrisy of every right-wing politician in the room. All of a sudden giving a shit that the kids were endangered by the recruitment tactics of these social media elements. And, you know, it's in a way using their own shit against them, right? Like they've been the first to peddle the lies about human trafficking, this or that. Now they have to toe the line on teenagers being creepy recruited by Facebook and Instagram because it's consistent with their message of gotta protect the kids. But these are officially the only born children that they give a fuck about. Otherwise, they don't give a fuck unless you're unborn.
So,
But also,
right.
I just dealt with this situation today in a very real capacity. Kids on social media, and it is a problem. It's a problem.
David, you want to talk about beer super
I'm
bad?
going to take it because it was really cool when I realized it. So, wait, hold on. Yes.
Give him full screen. Give him full screen.
Then I'll tell my story.
Jesus, John, you're sending me pictures. You're wanting David full screen. I'm only one man.
So,
Well, you know, you need a fucking director of your tech. Okay, so
the Marzen has like this little like Bavarian like hat for Duck Rabbit. I don't know what the fuck is going on here. Like he has like a baseball cap with like some sort of like silver fucking thing. This is a sports beer. This is the last of my Oktoberfest beers.
Oh, I forgot it's sports beer. I should have done that.
Right? Because you should be smart like me.
that's a big fucking ask.
Here You're right. He is a big.
I want to know
fucking
what's going on with
ass.
this little baseball cap. It's just so much fun.
So
Yeah.
All right,
you got that loaded up for me?
I do, John. John asked me to pull up this this image for everybody. So
We've spent the whole night bagging on Facebook, everything from policy to their performance, and I would like to give them one kudos. That's a sexy. I would bury it in so far. If they pulled me out, they'd be crowned king. Data center right there. It's a goddamn shame it doesn't work.
I can't listen. John, as someone who's worked in a data center before, I can testify. Yes, you are correct.
Also, I would like to speak about our sponsor here for a moment. Brought to you in part by Amtrak and what we fucking did to that sad bitch.
Hey, that's this whole conversation.
Just guarantee that Amtrak will never be a sponsor. Thank you, John. Thank you. We appreciate it.
So,
or maybe we just guaranteed that they would. I don't know.
For me, I mean, you saw lots of Congress people pitching their things. There's a Kids Act. It's an acronym. It means something.
Is that where they're going to get rid of Finsta?
Right. Yeah. I don't like they were all pitching their own thing today in a lot of cases. But the big thing that strikes me, and they mentioned it today in the hearing, while we are sitting here, it's 10 p.m. We're sitting here in Eastern time. It's 10 p.m. talking about this issue. They already brought up today in the hearing that come right about now, there have been a lot of expensive dinners purchased by lobbyists in Washington, D.C. on the behalf of Facebook. And sometime within the last 28 minutes, there have been a lot of escort blowjobs commenced in that town. And
I'm sorry, sir. That's Facebook money. That's full service performance.
It could be. And also, I forgot the average age and ethnicity of Congress. It was 2.5 hours ago. However,
because they've got to be in bed after MacGyver goes off.
Yeah.
Is there a blue plate special blowjob? I'm just curious.
As soon as the credits roll on Matlock, you got to start going down, honey.
Wait, I'm sorry. Just to add on to John's there. Attention, Kmart shoppers. The blue light is now flashing in the oral sex department.
Wait, no. I figured it out. You put the mentholated cream on the mouth, right? Before you go down.
I find it really interesting. What I find strange is that these politicians don't really understand a goddamn thing about the internet or Facebook, but they have some interesting tech in their cocks. I mean, they got a button they squeeze, a nut that they caress, and that shit gets rock solid. We got fucking full-on engagement of hydraulics.
Rob?
Well, no, that just reminded me. Remember the late Senator Ted Stevens? The internet is a series of tubes.
Hey, you know what? I put together tubes for a living, and there's some glue, there's some plastic. It's kind of wild, but
so I don't know if this issue can be solved by counter lobby action, but it's important to remember that it's what happens tomorrow and the next day, because the hearing was great today, but are these people just going to fold? Do we think that they have the wherewithal to actually stand up?
Facebook has been setting up for regulation for a while. I think part of the problem that they're having right now is they've been setting up for a realization that regulation is coming. They wanted to have regulation introduced on terms that they felt that they could agree to beforehand, right? Terms that they felt that they could. Here's my avenue out of this regulation. Here's this avenue out of this regulation. Here's this avenue out of this regulation. And I think what has happened because of this whistleblower is that some of those escape routes that they thought that they had built in to any future regulation have now been blown. Right? That's what they're really upset about. Because the regulation was going to come. Even AT&T, before the antitrust suit, knew that something was coming. Microsoft, before their antitrust suit, knew something was coming. We need to do something different. Otherwise, we're going to get screwed. And I think Facebook and Google both understand that they are going to have Sherman antitrust shoved all the way up their alimentary canal and have it expand, right,
I
at
don't know
an
about the Google
exponential
part.
rate.
Wait. We talking about like Ant-Man expand?
Oh
Yes,
my
like
God.
Ant-Man expand.
Hell yeah.
David,
Uh,
I think right now, I really feel like Congress has a very limited attention span, and they only have the bandwidth to muster the nuts to stand up to one
Well,
entity at a time.
So okay,
I
and
don't
here,
think
so
Google's
here,
going to get dragged into
that's-
anything.
well, so here's how you know Lucas is right. So number one, we really haven't heard much out of the January 6th commission, right? Like just there's some subpoenas. Okay, fine. What's going on with that? We don't hear anything about it. We've got this stuff going on, but starting like tomorrow or next week, all these people are going to go start campaigning for next year. They don't give a shit. All they care about is getting reelected.
Well, I think they can pull this off, but I'm saying that to say Facebook and Google are both screwed, that's too much of a wish list. I think you can get one. You can get Facebook dealt with. Google will be another day, and all the while, Twitter is going to be sliding under the radar, going, and it's
mostly because Twitter, you're allowed to have a monopoly. Twitter has a monopoly in its field. Fine, that's not a problem. Well, you could argue. What you all aren't realizing is that you're asking Congress to do something. It's the Department of Justice that brings the antitrust suit. John, what the fuck is going on there? What the fuck?
It's past 9 o'clock. I'm pulling my cock out. It's that time.
he's on DC time. It's 8 p.m. somewhere.
How much Kraken have you had?
He's had enough.
I don't know. Just for the record, I've got a glass here. I've got a glass here. I've got
Uh-oh.
a glass here. There was a fourth one, and I've been mixing ratios and drinking.
I mean, at least you didn't drink all of them to completion.
Well,
I mean, yeah.
There's a lot of water that's been added. Which means that there's been more
The
liquid.
fact that
that's
you
gone
can
in.
see through it is evidence that there's been plenty of water added, because it is Kraken after all. So
God,
I
I'm
think
moist.
that is, as elated as we are, we definitely have to keep in mind this shit could go pathetically sideways. But the only thing that gives me hope is that this is the first bipartisan thing we've seen in arguably 15 years that seems coordinated, similar, and actionable from like all sides.
Well,
It blew my mind. I kept sitting here all day watching it, waiting. Okay, surely somebody is going to get in a fight. Someone is going to get in a bickering on the dais over some bullshit, some January 6th or something, and nobody. No friction at all. It was basically every stripe, right or left, looking at this woman saying, "Can you please explain to us how red carpet will be rolled out for us to fuck Facebook?"
And no friction for Lucas makes for a very sad Lucas.
I mean, it wasn't as action-packed as I had hoped, but I liked the side that it landed on.
I'm curious, Lucas. A question for you, and it's a little off topic, but still political. As someone who's left, how do you feel about chances for the next president?
Wait, we're getting that far ahead?
Yeah. I would love to hear his soapbox speech on this subject.
We lost Rob for a second, but he's back. What happened?
The cat.
Oh, okay. I think we could all see the pending doom on that one. It was like Godzilla walking around the burbs. Hadn't made it to Wormtown yet. But,
There was, like Rob was gone, and there was just a big gray and white fluff ball.
Yeah.
I'm going to run off. 2 seconds.
I just feel like, Lucas, I'm reading a lot of disappointment in the left, and I worry that that's going to reflect negatively in the polls next time around. And there's a lot of hate and fight in the right that could show for a positive outcome in the polls next time around.
So, some might say that you've divvied off of this topic, but I don't think you have, because if we get this Facebook thing under control, it helps.
Yeah.
Because
well, that was actually that was my bridge. That's what I was
as much
thinking.
as a lot of people don't want to admit it. if we get Facebook under control and make it start, I don't know, attaching to reality, then the right has less traction because they're not operating in reality. In fact,
Correct.
So they're ignoring the part where I cross my fingers daily that another human being will die. Trump. I've never known.
You know what? I don't think I'm crossing my fingers for that. I truly believe with all of my heart that he will be in jail before 2024.
I wish, but I don't know.
Jail would work, prison would work, but I'm always just hoping that he falls down the stairs or health catches up to him.
Did you catch Giuliani's testimony the other day?
No, but I'm sure it was enlightening.
Giuliani, under oath, basically said everything that I was saying about the election being rigged was a lie.
Oh.
I had nothing to back it up. I just heard it from someone and I was repeating it, but I never verified it. What kind of and I love that he followed that up with what kind of lawyer would I be if I went and verified it?
I'm curious. When he said that, do you think that the rest of the courtroom could smell Trump's Fremunda cock and balls on his breath? Because I can, and just hearing that, I could smell. There's a pungent aroma right here.
And John, to go to your immediate question, I actually think how we resolve some of these bills and budget topics is going to be the answer to that, because I want the stuff that the progressives are holding out for to be reality, but I will take forward motion without it if necessary.
But my counter to that is the left, the Democrats, have made a habit of, doing what they can and kind of coming to the middle and not really be correct. And the right has taken advantage time after fucking time after time. So you got a big movement to the right, and then the left gets in and makes a small movement to the left. The net outcome is still more movement to the right.
The left comes in and does jack shit nothing. This so far this Congress, and then the last time that the Democrats controlled Congress, we got two things done: jack shit.
Yep.
Okay. Wait. No. Okay. I want to point out. No, that ain't right. So we got the American Rescue Plan pushed through reconciliation without a single Republican vote. Let's all remember. Hold on. I know all of us are here right now, but let's all remember 6 months back when we were in the middle of the deep shit.
Yeah.
And they bit the bullet and they said we're going to go ahead and use one of our two basically legislative vetoes over filibuster, and we're going to pull this out.
But the problem, David,
so they
is
did do
that's
that.
not sexy. No one remembers that non-sexy operational stuff.
No, it is sexy. I want to point out that is sexy.
No,
that
you're a legal wonk. You don't get to determine what's sexy.
Wait. So remind me again what the American Rescue Plan has done for me. Remind me again what the American Rescue Plan has done for me and for the rest of the country, because
it gave us all $2,000.
Oh, that I haven't seen yet, because the IRS hasn't processed my fucking tax returns yet.
Yeah.
So therefore, I don't get my stimulus until they do.
I had to wait too.
For the record, they haven't processed my tax returns from 2019,
and David,
let alone last year.
David,
they didn't process mine either, and I had to wait too.
David, and Olivia, no offense, and Olivia's people were too busy talking about how the American Rescue Plan wasn't honest, that it was supposed to be, what was it, 2,400? I forgot how all the people in the fucking hashtag Gen Y fucking bullshit. All these people were bitching that it wasn't another $2,000, that it was a total of $2,000. So it is not sexy, David.
To be fair, when you start comparing us to other first world countries, we got the fat side of a cock.
I know what he's talking about, but I wasn't part of the thing. So
no, you weren't.
I know what the thing is, but I wasn't in the thing.
Unfortunately, you are held back by those people, those younger people on the left that don't understand math and can't accept a $2,000 total over two different payments, are the kinds of people for whom the American Rescue Plan is not a defense of progress.
And I'm okay with that. I can live with that.
But I mean, to be fair, that American Rescue Plan, it was helpful, sure.
Yeah.
But when you start comparing it to what other first world countries did, we got a sideways fucking dick.
Oh
Yeah. Other countries are giving out like what, $1,000 a month or
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
like that.
I mean, if you just
Yeah.
go to our fucking hat, Canada, we would have got treated a lot
Right.
better.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
We can all compare ourselves to Denmark, where they
I
were
was gonna,
literally handing out
leave my
$2,700 a week.
leave
Yeah.
my
But
driveway,
again-
turn right, and find a country that did it better.
But
Olivia
again,
has probably the same scenario, or turn left.
but again, David,
It's like
it
80
happens
miles.
every time Democrats get control in Congress. They do nothing with it.
They're
what
middling
Angie
as fuck. They are not bold. They don't act.
There's, whereas the Republicans, when they had control, rammed through two judges through right up our asses.
Taxes.
So I don't know if it was the most recent
tax
of the
cuts,
videos.
that's it.
that,
Oh, hey, you know what? Go
that-
back, Lucas, to the fucking IRS we were talking about a minute ago. How about the fact that, they had budget cuts and shit and they couldn't hire people and they lost people because of COVID. And they said, oh, wait, we no longer have the staff to go after the rich, but we still have enough staff to go after the fucking poor in audits.
I want to point out that that's always been the case, because
Yeah, but it got really bad.
Yeah,
it's been really bad. I mean, it's
No,
been bad.
that's dismissive of the reality of what's going on in the past COVID times. They are only really auditing the average and the poor now.
let's
I gotta.
let's let this topic kind of roll over to Trey Crowder. If you haven't seen it, he
Oh
had a
God, I
recent-
love Trey.
Yeah, he had a recent.
I met
video.
him a year and a half ago.
He essentially talked about, I don't know if it was the most recent, but it was very recent that he talked about this whole standoff with all the budget and different bills. And he pointed out that we always fail to fall in line under a mantra. But on the Republican side, they're, yes, sir, Mr. Trump. I don't care what my values were, Mr. Trump. Whatever you
Yeah.
want, Mr. Trump.
No, the
I'm
saying
for
is
you.
Republicans fall in line, Democrats fall in love.
Well,
Bye,
fall
Rob.
apart would be what I would say. I mean, Rob?
Yeah, I would have to go fall apart because I'm sorry because Trey Crowder he says it every time he talks about it. Ted Cruz, Donald Trump called Ted Cruz's wife ugly, said some shit about his dad. Ted Cruz during the campaign talked all kinds of trash about Trump, but as soon as Trump won, he was sucking on Trump's left nut.
Yep.
That's he's a fucking lapdog.
Well, I want to point out,
Bye, guys.
Bye,
Oh, Rob,
Rob.
you gotta go.
from all the people who are
Oh,
saying
he
like
does.
Sanders,
Hey, everybody, say bye to Rob.
Bye, Rob.
Thanks for joining us.
Mwah.
for all the people who said that the Sanders people didn't show up for Hillary, the numbers said very much different, right? The numbers said that the vast majority of Bernie folk showed up for Hillary. So this idea that we don't fall in line at all is wrong. But on the other hand, the problem is the general.
But we're not talking about the voters. We're talking about Congress, David.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
the
they don't.
reality is,
The reality is that once the senators and the House people get in there and they have control, they have the majority, they do jack shit nothing with it.
they pansy around. They don't bully each other into submission like the Republicans do. I mean,
And I forget the
There's
one
not
dude's
enough.
name.
There is not
Without
enough
hypocrisy.
cocksucking on the Democratic side like there is on the Republican side.
I mean, with what happened to Senator Sinema, it seems like the people are going to bully her into compliance.
hopefully.
Oh my God! Did you heard about that?
Yeah.
Well, and
Have y'all,
apparently
Lucas? Did you hear about that?
I haven't. Can y'all fill
the
me in?
bathroom thing.
So,
You didn't
yeah, the
know about
bathroom thing. So apparently she was at her school teaching a class. And amazingly enough, I actually heard this because I listened to Todd Starnes on my way to work because I like hearing what the other side says so that I can hear how stupid and crazy they sound.
Mhm.
But anyway, so she was teaching her class. She went to the bathroom and a group of undocumented Americans, and they specifically said in the recording that they were undocumented, followed her into the bathroom while she was sitting on the toilet and were telling her that she has to pass this law. Like, and she didn't engage with them. All you heard was this one guy. So it was at least one guy and two different women who followed her into the bathroom. And all you hear is them talking. They're not calling her names or anything, but they're just being really loud and talking about how she's going to pass this bill. And then you hear her flush and wash her hands.
Yeah,
And
as someone pointed out, she hasn't held one single town hall. She's refused to engage with their constituents. The Arizona Democratic Party is ready to literally forsake her, and as an official note, put anyone else who will run against her. The scuttlebutt that I hear is this: that Sinema has this guy as her chief of staff, who is of that school that is convinced that Hillary lost because a bunch of Bernie folk didn't show up to the polls. And he wants to go school. And part of this is revanchism, right? I'm going to show you what a real Democrat can do, a real conservative Democrat, because I'm a conservative Democrat. Apparently, this guy is completely fucking unhinged. And
neat.
Sinema is. I have to be honest. Like, if you look at her track record, you can kind of see. What's a non-misogynistic way to put this?
Just lay it out for us.
I fully believe that she has full capability, but she wants to be led around on a leash, and she's been led around on a leash most of her career, right? And so now she's got a new daddy dom in the form of her.
You are fucking making me hot and moist. Keep going.
And the form of her chief of staff, who is telling her the progressives are her enemy, and she needs to stand up to them, and that will win her votes in Arizona. The only problem is that entire thinking is completely hijacked by the fact that then Arizona turned around and elected an even more liberal senator.
Two observations. One, what if she was never in this for the right reasons and she's just an attention whore and now she's in over her head?
That's part of it. I think that's definitely part of it.
Oh my God!
I'm curious.
Sorry, I just read. I'm reading the news articles as we talk. So has anybody heard what Trump's new slogan is?
Oh yeah, make America great again. Right.
Yeah. MAGA again.
Wow,
So,
he really fucking dug deep.
Stop! I can only get so erect.
So, the number two for me with her and anybody in Arizona, to be fair, Arizona was the place that the Bernie kids massively shit the bed on learning how to vote at all and fucked up their primary.
You're thinking of Nevada.
I'm pretty sure it was Arizona.
No, it was Nevada.
It was Nevada. Yeah, it was Nevada.
I'm going to take your word for it.
Lucas, if we can go back to the beginning of this fucking video chat we've had going here, you were wrong. So statistically, you're probably fucking wrong. I'm curious.
You know what, though?
Go ahead.
This is wrong, I don't want to be right.
I'm gonna have to do some work on that. We need to make a montage of variations of that scene, and I would like to work on that with you.
Whatever the tech is, where you just paste another face onto the moving head of the actual character. That's what we need to do.
I have got.
Oh, you're talking about deep faking it?
No,
I have got tensor
we
cores.
need to deep fake it. We need to
not
deep
fake.
fake.
That's too good. It needs to be like jib jab quality.
No, we can back it off. We can back it off. I've got a 3090 in there. We can render.
There's still a thing. Jib jab still exists. Unfortunately.
I don't think they're going to make the Mark Zuckerberg butt fuck jib jab anytime soon.
So I heard it. Okay, I gotta set this up appropriately for you, Lucas. So I was hanging out with, and to be clear, I love him to death. We've been hanging out a lot lately. He's a good friend, and we got history. A mutual bald friend of ours. You might be able to think of who I'm speaking of.
Yeah.
I was at his house and I was helping him with some things, and he has a proclivity for some right, and one could say some far right media that he takes in. And I thought I would shut my fucking mouth, which is very hard, and listen. And he had a particular webcast that he subscribes to and pays for to be able to watch. And it's structured with a very right-leaning person and a supposedly left-leaning person who's I guess if you could apply the rough term to use here, but Uncle Tomish behavior, if you could make that a right and left comparison, leftist
That
on
would
that
be the
show.
worst thing that we've ever said on this entire fucking show. The
Yeah.
other ones were deleted.
So I'm taking this in, and do you recall when I believe it was Kamala Harris was going on a news show, and two of the anchors came back COVID positive during the event?
Yeah, it was The View.
Yes,
yeah.
The View.
Yeah.
So that happens, and this particular talk show goes on to talk about the fact that it was very strange that, first of all, if you're going to have a vice president on the air with all the structure and rules around it, you're going to have COVID results before that happens. Strangely, they had the results during the airing and had to pull them, and then they cut to a remote interview instead.
Oh, it's conspiracy time.
And yeah, that's my point. That's what I'm getting to. The conspiracy is that there was some like political reason to keep her off the air in the format that they were going to go with, because they later came back and said that both of them actually tested negative, that it was false results for both of them. Here's the strange thing. Both of the tests that were given were PCR, which we know has the lowest false positive. And so they said it was statistical improbability that you have two people at the same time in the same area come back as a false positive. What's your view on that spin of a conspiracy theory?
Oh, I've got another one. Go ahead.
I mean,
Go ahead.
I
Answer
would-
that question first. But I've got the other conspiracy theory that I heard too. But
My
go for it.
assumption is back to that simplest explanation is probable, and that would be that production is sloppy and unpredictable, and shit gets delayed, and famous people tend to dictate when they are and are not going to do things, and who knows what variables were at play. What's a PA going to do when one of those, highfalutin media chicks says, no, I'll deal with that later? I mean, it is what it is.
I feel like the rule, though, would come down on the, Secret Service and all the shit around a vice president. I would love to hear David's input. I have no grounds for this, but I have this assumption that it's...
So first of all, I want to point out conspiracy theories are shit generally.
For sure. This is a shit conversation.
But here's what you always use. You always use prisoner's dilemma, right? This is what I always use generally is prisoner's dilemma, which is if you've never played.
Real quick, bye, Mike. Mike's out. See you, Mike.
Bye, Mike.
Bye, Mike.
Bye, Mike. You won't be missed. I love you.
If you've never played prisoner's dilemma, you draw a big box and then you bisect the box and then you bisect the box again, so you have 4 boxes, right? And then you assign values to each box. I'm not going to go through the entire thing, but basically, the scenario that you put into prisoner's dilemma is this: you have one person. If you say nothing, and the other person says nothing, then neither of you get punished. If you say something and the other person doesn't, you get half the punishment, and the other person gets all the punishment. Those are the two options. You can either talk or not talk.
What if you both talk? I'm curious.
If you both talk, you both get half the punishment. So guess what everyone does? Guess what everyone does when everyone talks? Everyone talks. Everyone talks. So this idea about conspiracy theories, there's a reason we know about Agent Orange. There's a reason that we know about MK Ultra. There's a reason that we know about all these things. Is everyone talks. If it hadn't been Snowden, it would have been someone else.
But what were they hiding anyway?
The thing.
I mean,
it's always everyone always talks, and one of the things that pisses me off about conspiracy theories is that I'm like, everyone always talks. We know as gospel truth that Johnson was walking around the Oval Office with his dick out. That's how much information we get about what goes on.
I mean, to be fair,
Right.
I'd be walking around the Oval Office with my dick out too.
I'd be walking around the Oval Office stark ass naked.
So apparently with Johnson, it was a power trip thing because apparently he had like a full 9-incher that
My
he'd like
favorite
to-
thing about
I'd
all
show
this
him the biggest inch and a
bullshit-
half they've ever seen. I don't give a
Right.
fuck.
My favorite thing about all this
But
bullshit
anyway,
is
back
no one
to
can
the
ever
point.
answer.
Back to the point.
question
I also
why.
want to point out that the Secret Service has become perhaps the most stupid security agency that we have in the entirety of the U.S. law enforcement security apparatus. They've got a really great, team around the president, and then they've got a bunch of hangers-on that circle around the agency and then do stupid shit like buy a bunch of prostitutes and brag about I'm in the Secret Service in Colombia. I mean, it's the dumb. These are not smart people, and unfortunately, we have not done a full clearinghouse of the Secret Service. I would argue that the Secret Service, as it stands right now, needs to be pulled off the presidential security detail. We need to put a different organization that is more in charge and more used to secrecy.
The Space
in charge.
Force.
Yes.
So,
Hey,
here's
by the way,
thing. I don't
Jill,
really.
if you're watching, we're making fun of your branch. We
I
are
really
doing that
don't
right
know.
now.
Wait,
I
who
don't
do
know
we
what
know
the
that's in the
answer
Space
is.
Force?
Ranch.
Wait, what?
Both me and Lucas know this girl who
Oh,
is now
Jesus.
working in the PR and marketing section of the Space Force.
The agency
Oh,
that should have
dear.
just been the Air Force. So here's the thing that never checks out for me.
Well, which I
is
found.
no
Here's
one
the
can
interesting
ever.
thing I found out.
David.
Oh,
Moving
sorry.
on. No one can ever point out what the fuck was the end game. What's the point, right? Like, okay, so what if someone figured out a way to keep Harris off TV? What were they avoiding?
Don't get me wrong. I took in this whole fucking show, the whole thing, because I was building a desk. I couldn't get away. There was no goddamn point. It went nowhere.
Well, it's like the whole COVID thing. Like, oh, it's a conspiracy for what? To do what exactly?
I love
Usher in socialism because the way that we wanted to accomplish that was for all of us to almost be dead or broke or homeless.
I love how Ted Cruz said that after, like 2 weeks after the election, we wouldn't be talking about COVID anymore.
Shit.
I feel like to a certain point, you can't reason with these people. They're addicted to the rage. They're addicted to the being angry. Because we have a manager at my job who came into my office this morning talking about the weather. Totally benign conversation. We started talking about how it's going to be cold soon because we live in Vermont. And once he started talking about being cold, he started talking about the cost of fuel oil, and then it was like Joe Biden and the pipeline. I was like, I cannot with you. You need to just go.
Right, because
they're addicted to the
they
rate.
don't understand that Joe Biden has zero to do with the price of oil.
And it's not like we spent all summer having our largest oil producing states wallets by hurricanes or anything.
Right.
And then the beginning of the year where one of our largest oil producing states froze.
Right? But these people, they want to be angry and they need to be angry at something. I feel like at a point you just can't reason with these kind of people.
Okay,
Well,
so
the
I want to say
reality is that these are people that don't understand how anything works. They don't understand civics. They don't understand government. They never have. They've never been engaged. And a big, angry, orange dumb fuck got them engaged, but they have no way to participate in the conversation. So the most simple-minded means of participation is what you get.
You say that, but what kills me is some of these people that I interact with at my job and stuff are very smart people. I mean, we're talking about the manager of operations. He's not a stupid man by any means.
If he thinks Joe Biden has some control over the price of gas, he's a fucking moron.
I'm talking about there's
Let's not forget.
Kind of smart and there's this kind of smart.
Yeah, we all went to school with people that were
so why
intellectual.
doesn't it translate over here?
There are people that are intellectual and there are people that test well. And usually the people that test well are the ones that succeed professionally. It doesn't mean that they're actually smart.
I don't know. It just blows my mind that people can be actually competent and intelligent.
Hold on.
Into this.
I gotta offer a fuck you to Lucas. First of all, as as an ADHD, probably on the fucking spectrum, tested
Me
horribly,
too.
have got 20s in as averages in some courses. Keep in mind, I didn't appear to half of them.
Yeah.
High school dropout, didn't have a GED until substantially into my fucking adult life. Relatively successful person. Fuck you.
Okay.
But
I
you
wanna-
were
I-
successful on
I
your
wanna
own
come at it from the
timeline. You
opposite
weren't
end.
successful on the American standard of by the age of 25 out of school paying all your debts in the mythological construct that we pushed on you for university,
Well,
etc.
Yeah, but at 25, I ran a small business that was highly successful, bringing
That's
in
what
people
he's
from other
saying.
countries.
That's what he's saying. You
I-
did
I-
it on your time. You didn't do it on
The person that Olivia
society's
works
time.
with very much may have followed all of those cookie cutter rules, and they might be really good at the cookie cutter rules, but they never thought outside the box. They wouldn't be owning their own anything.
No, I mean he's to his credit. I interacted with him a lot and have for several years, and he's not stupid. He's a
Okay.
very
Well,
intelligent.
that's the other side of the coin.
He's not
Otherwise,
stupid. He's in therapy. There's a statement.
Well, I mean,
All right.
I don't know. Going to therapy shows a high amount of emotional intelligence.
But
No, I just to link those two statements immediately together was kind of.
I just think
ironic for me.
I think every
Yeah, I
person on
think
this
it's-
planet should be in therapy.
I think a lot of it is.
Oh yeah,
Probably.
no, there's nothing wrong with therapy. It's
there's
just
probably-
putting those two statements right together.
Yeah.
I think it's
funny to
less
me.
strictly intelligence and more maybe emotional maturity.
Yeah, that could be it.
Okay,
All right,
so
David.
if I may, so as someone who's definitely on the fucking spectrum, on one form or another, and as someone who actually did go through all the hoops and did all the things and still managed to get butt fucked repeatedly
That's capitalism.
by everything.
Welcome
I-
to capitalism, David.
yeah, exactly. I want to point out that number one, going through the hoops is not a sign that you're not on the spectrum. I probably am very much on the spectrum. Obviously, most people who have met me probably, yeah. Anyway, back to the point. Just because you are able to carry conversation and look around yourself and have a certain level of adroitness does not mean that you have a functional critical intelligence, right? This is one of the things that I feel like Southerners are more attuned to, perhaps, than most other people, which is mostly because religion is normally the way in which we perceive this, right? So often in the South, so much of the stupid is filtered through the lens of evangelical religiosity, right? And so instead of just meandering like a free radical of stupid, it normally coalesces
Free
around the aspect of the Southern Baptist or Pentecostal churches. And it becomes very obvious, right? Because it has something to gravitate to, and it's stupid. I think what I would say from my experience, because I've obviously met many Southern Baptists and many Pentecostals who on the surface are very intelligent, very nice people, and when you ask them, well, but what about this? They're like, well, yes, I suppose the Jews will have to die.
Jesus Christ.
I mean, it's just sort of one of those things. Like you realize that no, there's obviously a blind spot that they've you're talking to someone who is able to form the words and interact with you in a sensible manner, but in the background you're dealing with something which is gone completely fucking haywire. And religion.
So maybe
religion
you're lacking some
religion
high
gives
order.
us that advantage of being able to be like, something's gone wrong here.
It basically boils down to people who don't have the ability to question things.
Well, high order
Which
critical
I feel
thinking.
like that's emotional intelligence. That's
Right.
the
Yeah.
emotional ability to process information and
Well,
discern
that's really,
reaction.
But they're taking. But the difference is that they're taking non-emotional information and lensing it through
Mhm.
emotional intelligence.
that's true.
So
Yeah.
that's at least in the South we get that, which is that we can watch that happen very easily because religion creates that emotional lensing, right?
The best
In the
example of
North,
that.
you don't have that kind of same emotional lensing that is so obvious to see.
So what I'm saying is you can have someone that's perfectly like functionally intelligent and very good at processing
Yes.
information, but lacks the emotional maturity to not be a reactionary dickhead.
Yeah. Mark, what you're saying?
Oh, well, talking about like taking a factual thing and putting it through an emotional lens or through the lens of religiosity, the abortion argument, right?
Oh,
Like anybody who says that the Bible is anti-abortion has never read the book of Numbers.
Yes.
Because the book of Numbers, the book of
priest
Numbers
could do it.
gives specific instructions for how a priest is to perform an abortion.
Yep.
Not a doctor, a priest,
Right.
a priest of God. You take your wife to the priest
Yep.
and say, "Here you go."
Well,
Specifically within
Order
that, though,
out.
didn't the wife have to like cheat it effectively?
It was no. The wife did not have to cheat. The husband had to suspect that she had cheated.
And we
And
know
then he took her to the priest, and the priest would mix up a little mixture, and she would drink it. And had she been unfaithful, then she would have miscarried.
this was just a loophole to allow
Magic
the man to control the
elixir.
reproduction of the woman in that situation.
You know, anybody who says that God is pro-life has never read the parts of the Bible where God has commanded his people to go into cities and rip the babies from the womb.
Well,
And as a matter of fact, if you look at the Bible as a whole, for example,
it contradicts itself.
Well, all over the fucking thing, but that's neither here nor there.
The God of the New Testament is not the God of the Old Testament. They are two completely different people.
But if you look at all the death and shit throughout the Bible, isn't it like all of it but 3 times is technically due to God and not because of Satan?
Yeah, something like that.
The only ones that I can think of that were specifically Satan was what happened to Job and his family.
I'm not Jesus-y enough for this kind of question.
It's all part of the same.
Sorry, I was going to be a priest at one point in time. So
the same phenomenon of
bless you and your choices,
wanting to cherry pick, subdivide, echo chamber. It all feeds the mentality that goes into ultimately this whole Facebook debacle, right?
It's the person that's sitting there eating a bag of pork rinds telling you thou shalt not kill.
Or eating a bag of pork rinds while sitting in a vat of lard. I mean, it's literally
you're not. I mean,
existing in its entirety.
It goes back to the West Wing quote. You know, if they go to Sunday service and pray, do the Notre Dame people have to wear gloves when they touch the football, because touching the skin of a dead pig is, according to the Bible, a sin.
So when you get into all of these levels of inconsistency, gullibility, etc., you touch on the people that put a lot of those people in the chamber today who we saw talking. And the last
Lucas
thing,
trying to bring it back to topic.
No, because I was hoping that we would have an excuse to talk about how she spoke about political advertising, because that's the last thing on my little checklist of stuff that was awesome. She pointed out that the Facebook system forces. I really wanted to see the camera live on every member when she said this. The Facebook system forces the political advertiser to. I forgot how she phrased it, but it was essentially to fish for the shittier catch just to be successful in getting traction. And for her to say that was like, oh shit, like she's literally telling some of you how you got there, because your advertising agency looked to the lowest common denominator and grabbed all the people that we just got done talking about that are inconsistent morons and got them drummed up for you, all because of the way this network works. And that was one of the things that I thought was huge. I didn't expect you guys to serve it up in such a deeper way, but that one was like, oh, damn. She just drove it home for everybody in that room. Olivia.
So I've been wondering a lot, and I've been thinking about, I think there's a point where we're going to have to view the internet as a place where powers from maybe enemies and whatnot are prevalent. Because we've had issues with Facebook with astroturfing campaigns to draw in support from people that don't live in the area.
Right.
And one of the things I've been really, really curious about the past 3 months or so is VAERS data, because the VAERS data for the COVID vaccines has more reports than like any vaccine fucking ever. It's ridiculous. And I wonder how much of that is going to come to light as being like falsified Russian bot.
Well, I mean,
the VAERS system.
There's no verification on VAERS data. It is
exactly,
a rough
and this
spot to
is
dump
a
it, as
huge
you
fucking
said.
problem for us.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to come to light as an issue because there is no verification. Anybody can go on VAERS and make a report, and I think we're going to find out down the line that some foreign power has just loaded that system to sow distrust. Here.
Well, I think the gap in your logic there is that you think that the group that manages the VAERS data would even collect enough metadata to know that it came from another country.
No,
I try to have a little faith.
This goes back to Lucas's thing about people not knowing how things work. You know, it's just like anybody in the world. Like, I've never been to this one church that's out in Oklahoma that like did some racist bullshit, but Google lets me go on and write a review about them.
Right.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Anybody, like what you said, anybody can go on VAERS.
Government reporting systems like VAERS, that kind of needs to be clamped right down on.
Right, it does, but it's not. And the people that are pointing to that and saying, "Oh, the vaccine is bad, it's killing a bunch of people," don't realize that there's a bunch of people just like them who are going on that site and saying that shit. There's no facts to back it up.
David, we're moving into the home stretch. What you got?
If I may, one of the things that people forget, at least in terms of that arena, is that the Russians and Chinese both developed their own vaccines, which they have been trying to sell to people as proof of their global
superiority.
Yeah, and well, not superiority, because no one thinks that Russia or China is superior to the United States on the global stage in any way.
Except for all the Americans buying the iPhones that are made in China, but okay.
But are they made in China? It's fuzzy. Anyway, back to the point.
I think from their perspective, they're exerting superiority that they perceive. It's irrelevant what the world really thinks.
Right. But it's also no, it is what the world perceives. It's like, oh, well, the Chinese gave me my vaccine, not the Americans. The Chinese are superior. The Russians gave me my vaccine, not the Americans. The Russians are superior. So yes, it is. There is a political aspect to who provided you your vaccine, and one of the things that actually has been happening. So the Maldives and several sections of India tried to vaccinate with Sinovac, which was the Chinese-developed vaccine. It failed epically. I mean, it did not protect against any mutation of the virus.
Hell yeah, let me get that one.
That reminds me, I need to get my booster shot.
Me too.
I think the general position of the
well,
world
dare it up for the win. Anyway,
is like, oh, I got the Chinese one. No wonder it failed. I don't think anybody expects quality.
Well,
it's like you got the one that they sold on Wish.
That's what we think.
There's your statement. Anybody who buys from Wish knows not to get a vaccine from China.
Yeah, well, that's what we think, but that's not like what the Maldives or India thinks, right?
Well, that's because they don't have the internet to order off of Wish.
Damn.
I'm pretty sure India has the internet. Anyway, back to the point. Part of the disinformation campaign, this is an issue of sovereignty. Because this is an issue of, if we can prove that the American vaccines don't work, then the failure of our vaccines, this failure of the Sputnik 5 and Sinovac vaccines don't look as bad. Because the Sinovac and Sputnik 5 vaccines have consistently failed to protect from the virus, right?
You're kind of piggybacking that there would be a justification for interference in a system like what Olivia described.
There's a healthy skepticism everybody should expect on the internet. Like, I have come across many Facebook users that actively share CCP propaganda because They found it on Twitter. And there's just I think you should approach most things with a healthy amount of skepticism and
Exactly,
Own
and
it.
especially with anybody who's read about the Tuskegee experiment should have any kind of just a little bit of trepidation about a vaccine.
I'm not gonna lie, Olivia.
Yeah.
You just kind of brought your progressive credentials into question by calling it CCP.
I'm too lazy to say the whole thing, man.
That was coming in hot. That was coming in hot.
So at the end of the day,
I'm not arguing. I'm just saying.
all of this
Too
speaks to the
lazy to say the
idea-
whole thing.
all of this speaks to the idea that the majority of reasonable people will filter dumb shit if given the chance. And so far, we don't have that chance very well. I hope that we do see it. I hope that this is the beginning of the end, or otherwise known as consummation.
Here's the thing. I'm going to say this is my summation, and then I'm going to be done. Facebook knew regulation was coming. They've known regulation was coming. They've been trying to argue for regulation that they felt that they could circumvent or tolerate for the past 6 months. They know that this is coming. I think that what happened this week went a long way to proving that no, they need to be treated like a utility or a monopoly, one or the other.
I think there are grown-ups in the boardroom that might fit what you described, David, but I think the maniac in charge is unaware of the reality. I think this got this bad. Who said incels earlier? Was
Me.
it you, Mark?
That was
I
me.
think Facebook was built by a bunch of maladjusted, fucked up incel weirdo nerd bros that had absolutely no idea the Frankenstein that they were building.
Is that why they banned me for saying bad things about men?
That's probably part of
Probably why.
I say bad things about men.
I mean, Facebook was originally built as a way for them at college to judge women. Basically.
Yeah.
But like the only thing I've ever been banned for and sent to Facebook jail for was a meme, and it was just a picture of like a cartoon garbage truck, and it said "man disposal service," and I caught a week for that fucking thing.
Wow. The most I've ever gotten is a 48-hour ban.
I have never been banned. The most I'm just simply in perpetual warning. They just give me perpetual warning. I don't know what that's about.
Yeah, I've got that little warning thing up at the top of mine too right now.
Can't say bad things about the men's on Facebook.
It means
you can't call the woman that was harassing me and Lucas the other week a bitch.
I will say this: I'm often less controversial than, or at least less confrontational than a lot of you.
You're less.
You're less confrontational.
I will be. I will lay logical traps for people and be like, "Would you like to walk into this?" And they can. At which point, I will shove my whole boot up their ass. But I won't. I find it counterproductive, just generally, mostly to my fucking notification feed.
I'm not
actively engage people.
confrontational myself, and that's the only ban I've caught is that fucking meme.
All right, we're going to wrap up. Mark, what you got? What's your final thought
So
here?
my thing, and this is pretty much just in agreement with, I think, something Olivia said earlier, is I think, and maybe somebody else said it, but if they change the laws to where Facebook is held liable for shit that happened on their platform, and Lucas, you said, you can't be responsible for what bullshit comes out of the radio station's mouth, but if you and I, if me and David and John plan a bank robbery at your house, you can be held responsible for it.
Right.
If a bunch of fucknuts plan an insurrection on Facebook, Facebook should be held responsible for it.
I think the line that we're talking about drawing in these would be the getaway car used in the bank robbery. You don't get to prosecute Ford for selling them the car any more than you get to prosecute GoDaddy for selling them the URL.
And unless Ford explicitly sold you the car as a getaway car.
Right. And I don't think we have that danger here. But like was discussed earlier, The
No,
government
you just changed the comparison though. The comparison isn't the getaway car. The comparison is me and Olivia and John and David plotted a robbery at your house.
First of all, I didn't do a goddamn thing. Let's lay that down.
We conspired to commit a crime. Okay, fine. Let's switch it. The other four of us conspired
the entire fucking time
to commit a crime while at John's house.
In fact,
I think
John did nothing to stop us.
That attitude. I want you to develop the exact same silence you've had for the last 10 minutes.
I think
I might have got distracted, honestly.
The concept of good faith
another
matters
computing
in
device in
these
my lap.
contexts. I think that if you look at the good faith of a data center, for example, that they lease space to an entity, it doesn't have to be Facebook. In the future, the regulations ought to be widespread. So someone leases rack space to somebody out of good faith, and then that person does the wrong thing. That's where we're talking about drawing lines. It would be one thing to let you into the house and say, here, use my basement, plan your robbery. It would be another thing if you came in and said you were going to play D&D, and I, in good faith, gave you a table and found out that you planned a robbery later. And right. I think that's the that's the thing, though. Find these laws playing.
But did you provide?
But that's hang on, wait. But that's the thing. That's okay. Hang on. Let's keep that analogy. Let's keep that analogy because in this and in the analogy that you just went with. We all came together and said, yeah, we're going to come over to your house and play D&D. And you were like, okay, you can come to my house and play D&D. And then you actually heard us downstairs talking about the crime we were going to commit, and you didn't do shit about it. People outside the house came to you and said, they're plotting a crime in your basement, and you didn't do shit.
Then that may be an issue of the liability question.
People told people the FBI came to Facebook and said people are plotting this shit on your platform, and Facebook did nothing.
Right. So now we're talking about regulation and liability and how we leverage both of them to get control of the situation. And I don't know where it's going to end, but I think that those. I mean, David, is that accurate? It's liability meets regulation, and somewhere from whence we.
I think what Facebook is running into is Facebook. They're going to have to create a categorization that applies common carrier aspects to Facebook, and I think that's Facebook's worst nightmare is that if Facebook is put in the same categorization as a common carrier of information, of data. So on one hand, if they're a common carrier, right? Some of that you should have known goes away. That Mark is talking about. So some of that you should have known goes away because, in other words, at that point, Facebook says, "I just passed the data. I don't read or touch it." On the other hand, by passing the data, I accept a certain liability of what happens when it gets delivered. So if UPS delivers a bomb to someplace, right? UPS is fucked, right? Because UPS had a duty of care as they carried the package, and when they delivered it,
to run it through some sort of scanner.
To do something, to take some knowledge. In other words, if UPS did nothing to make sure that it wasn't a bomb, right? If you're a UPS carrier and you hear it ticking, right? Or if you're a UPS carrier and you see it leaking some sort of flammable liquid, right? You're fucked, right? It would have
I had the weirdest spy versus spy cartoon pop into my head when you described the ticking package.
It was just a dildo, man. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, right.
Right. So I mean, it's so the problem is that if Facebook is a common carrier, if they move them into that category of a common carrier, which I think is the easiest path to do this, they move them into the path of a common carrier, and they say, okay, you're a common carrier of data, you're a common carrier of photos, you're a common carrier of information. I would also argue that there's going to have to be some architectural changes on their end about how they structure data, which is going to make it look a lot more like Facebook. I'm not going to lie. If they have to go to common carrier, because one of the neat things, I was talking about this to someone earlier today, which was Facebook, by virtue of its structure, actually made it harder to create some of these campaigns, right? Because of how, or not Facebook, how MySpace structured itself. It made it harder to search demographics. In other words, if you,
Bless you.
pardon me, if you wanted to launch a marketing campaign on MySpace, you needed to come with your own demographics of what you wanted to sell to. MySpace would not as easily be able to give you the information that you needed, but you could say, hey, I want to sell to people who identify as 20 to 29, who are into alt metal and have that we anticipate $2,000 of disposable income.
It's
That would
hard
all
to compare
that would all be
MySpace,
almost
though.
in MySpace world. That would almost all be self-reported information, right?
But we've come a long way. I don't know if that's something that they wouldn't have gone ahead and done. I think MySpace, given the opportunities that Facebook was given in the timing and the evolution.
No, well, I would argue that's why MySpace folded, is because the very structure of MySpace made it harder to collect that demographic information, right?
Yeah, they would have changed it. I think they would have taken advantage of the same things that Facebook did. I think anybody ruled by greed and a lack of consequence, regardless of their product, will end up in the same place.
I agree with Lucas.
You're right. You're right. I'm talking about architecture.
Yeah, but they changed it. Facebook changed everything as they went. They didn't.
Yeah, I mean, Facebook looked like shit when it started.
Yeah,
and was structured like shit too. It's not like they're running on the same back end at this point. They have completely rebuilt that so many times.
Guys, we are gonna wrap it up, but real quick, John, you get the benefit of being the last guy to talk, so you get to be the first guy that says his final closing piece. So, what do you hope the results are as we move forward?
Fuck, man, I don't even know. To be honest, I see the whole situation as being a slippery slope in either direction. I think legislation by our government will be fucky and will be ineffective. I'm not saying it shouldn't be done. I'm just saying that it will be done poorly, as they always do. I guess my closing statement would be how moist David's pipe makes me. I haven't really put that into this show, and God, I love that pipe.
I was waiting for it. I was honestly waiting for it.
I was saving it for a final moment with you, just me and you. I'm looking in your eyes right now, and fuck, bud, that pipe.
Well, Mark, you get to follow that sentiment.
That's just so what I hope comes out of this is probably more along the lines of what David was saying, is that, you know, they identify Facebook as a common carrier and attribute those regulations to that, because at the end of the day, they need to have some liability for some of the shit that's happened on their platform.
Fair enough. Up there in the liberal utopia in which you
everybody's like covered everything I was gonna say.
So
liability, increased liability.
Does my pipe also make you moist? I don't know.
You'll never know.
There you go. Yeah.
I think I just heard a vagina slam.
The answer for me is a definitive no. I will tell you that right now. Mainly because you keep lighting it with a lighter and not a match.
I want to thank
now, you were trying to light a pipe repeatedly with a match. It is a pain in your fucking ass.
You don't have the patience to do it the right way doesn't mean that it's an excuse.
No human being who ain't a kung fu monk has the patience to do this the right way. Anyway,
I want to thank the three of you guys. Before I cut down,
can I get?
No.
Before I cut down to the last two blowhards that you always see, I want to thank the three of you guys and everybody else that joined in.
Thank you guys very much.
Good night, John, and good night, Olivia. Good night, Mark. And all right, Mister. It's down.
I want to respond to everyone, which is first of all, my pipe does make me a sexy beast, but I understand if it generates particular moisture.
Mhm. Yeah,
Of
but Sherlock
particular
is
kind.
hotter, and everybody knows it.
Uh,
So
but I mean, at the end of the day, I think we're looking at a situation in which Facebook has known regulation is coming, and they're going to respond to it. I think that this week has definitely blown back their plans for how they wanted to do that. But I think at the end of the day, we're going to look at them as a common carrier of data, and they're going to get regulated as such. And they're also going to be subject to Sherman antitrust.
well,
But both,
after today, dude, like I was so totally the Michael Jackson animated GIF with the popcorn. I was so there for it, and I want to ask you: do you think that there's a format in which we could see both our whistleblower and Zuck the Cuck called in front of Congress at the same time? Because that would be the pay-per-view match that I would.
I don't think that's how that works. I don't. I think they bring them in separate.
I would love to see them have to play off of each other and her just lay him down.
I mean, here's the thing. Honestly, I'm going to be like, if I'm Zuck's counsel, I don't want him in the same room as her. Why? Because Zuck is unsympathetic. Zuck is the last person that I ever want to bring in front of a jury, ever. Why? Because he is. Again, I'm not trying to down people who are on the spectrum, but that guy obviously does not have a very well developed emotional
No,
response.
he's terrible for himself. He's his worst enemy, and
And
now
the
he has
problem
another
is that-
enemy, and I love it.
and the problem is that he would get annihilated.
Oh yeah,
For that
that's why I want to see
lack
it.
of emotional response. And listen, so Zuck is on the spectrum, la di da. But the problem is that him being on the spectrum, showing no emotion, his accuser showing lots of very measured. I want to point this out: measured emotion,
Right.
not off the chain, not out of control.
Oh yeah.
Measured emotion. In other words, everyone would look at that and be like, sensible, very sensible.
She is the very definition of
Very
credible.
Very fucking sensible.
Very definition of credible, and I think that is really what's going to be the kick in the balls. Well, we are at the end of a very lengthy but very festive.
It's Oktoberfest. That's why we went long. It's okay.
And
That's going to be our justification.
I think that one last time, prost to Facebook's worst week. And as always, we're really glad that you guys were able to tune in. And we're really glad that we were able to have such an action-packed panel of people. I think this was a lot of fun. We'll do more of these special episodes. We'll be back next Tuesday, of course.
We have a Halloween episode coming up.
Yes, Halloween will come up, and I'll have to drink a bunch of goddamn pumpkin.
Yes, you will.
And until then, we can play normal for a couple of weeks. And we'll be back at you next week with the usual format. And if you love this, if you had fun with it, especially if you made an appearance, share it out and tell all your friends. This may be the first one that we go ahead and populate YouTube with. It's a good jumping off point, Oktoberfest and our beer theme. So yeah, glad everybody could be here. Is that water now?
No, it's still beer.
It looks like water. What in the hell?
It's more of the pumpkin beer.
Oh boy. All right. Well, we'll talk about that one closer to Halloween. For now, ladies and gentlemen, we will give you the typical adieu. Good night.
Good evening.
And
good luck.